Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Dragon Sage, son of Acnologia Naruto. X Wendy Marvell X Lucy Heartfilia, fairy tale. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Dragon's Son. The mountainside trembled as obsidian scales flashed beneath moonlight. 10-year-old Naruto stood transfixed, watching his father's massive form eclipse the stars themselves. Acnologia, the Chaos Dragon, regarded his adopted son with ancient, merciless eyes. Power recognizes no hesitation. Acnologia's voice resonated through the boy's bones. When you strike, erase all existence. Half measures breed only failure. Young Naruto nodded, wild blonde hair whipping in the magical pressure emanating from the dragon. The spiral birthmarks on his cheeks seemed to dar. Ken whenever his father's power surged nearby. I understand, father. You don't, Acnologia countered, but someday you might. The convergence approaches. Your destiny bridges worlds even I cannot fully comprehend. The memory dissolved as Naruto's eyes snapped open. 7 years had passed since that conversation. 7 years since Acnologia had vanished without explanation, leaving behind YPTIC warnings and a sun caught between worlds. The fragmented dreams were becoming more frequent. Dawn broke over the verdant valley as Naruto stood atop a weathered cliff face. At 17, he'd grown into his power, though not fully into his understanding of it. His sleeveless black coat with spiral patterns along its hem fluttered around his tall frame. Bandaged forearms crossed over his saint as he observed the peaceful village of Shiratsune below. Too peaceful. Naruto's enhanced senses detected the approaching threat long before any human could. 12 distinct magical signatures moving with practiced coordination. Dark Guild Raiders, based on their chaotic Ethernano patterns. Their target was obvious. Shiratsune's renowned ancestral vault, rumored to house celestial artifacts from the Dragon era. His lips curved into a slight smile. Perfect timing to work off frustration from another night of fragmented memories. Rather than taking the winding path down, Naruto stepped off the cliff edge. Wind rushed past as he channeled a precise amount of magic. Not too much, never too much. Control was everything when you carried the legacy of the Chaos Dragon. Chaos Dragon's whisper, he murmured. The air around him shimmered with barely visible distortions as he manipulated the ambient Ethernano. His descent slowed until he landed silently on a rooftop at the village outskirts. A technique he developed to avoid the destructive landings his father would have caused. Naruto closed his eyes, extending his senses beyond normal Dragon Slayer capabilities. This was something different, something his father had never taught him. The ability to sense natural energy and meld it with his magic was instinctive, a connection to a heritage he couldn't name. The raiders had split into 3 teams. 4 approaching from the western forest. 4 circling to the southern gate. 4 heading directly toward the village square, likely the distraction team. Naruto moved like liquid shadow across the rooftops. The villagers below remained oblivious to both the coming threat and their unexpected protector. He reached the western edge just as the first team of raiders emerged from the treeline. Their appearances matched their magic, corrupted, unstable. The insignia on their tattered clothes marked them as members of Phantom Fang, a rising dark guild known for artifact theft and civilian casualties. They wore their cruelty like badges of honor. Naruto dropped silently behind them, footfalls absorbed by a thin layer of chaos magic. The first raider sensed something, a shift in the air pressure. Perhaps, and turned just in time to meet Naruto's eyes. Morning, Naruto said conversationally. Lovely day for not attacking a peaceful village. The raider's eyes widened. It's him. The drag. Naruto's movement cut the warning short. He appeared beside the man without seeming to cross the intervening space, one hand pressed against the raider's chest. Chaos Dragon's pulse. A concentrated burst of magic, carefully modulated to incapacitate rather than kill, sent the raider flying backward into a tree trunk. The man slumped unconscious, his weapon clattering uselessly beside him. The remaining 3 reacted with practiced coordination. The woman to Naruto's left unleashed a barrage of ice shards while the 2 men circled to flank him. Chaos Dragon's scatter shield, Naruto whispered. The air around him distorted as the ice shards approached, their trajectories bending around his body before dissolving into magical particles. The flanking raiders hesitated, recognizing the defensive technique. That magic, he really is Acnologia's spawn, one whispered, fear evident in his voice. Naruto's expression hardened. I have a name. Use it or don't speak at all. He moved, gathering natural energy through his feet while channeling Dragon Slayer magic through his arms. The combination created unpredictable attack patterns that no standard defense could anticipate. The female ice mage attempted to create a barrier, but Naruto's fist, wreathed in swirling chaos energy, shattered it like glass. His follow-through was a palm strike that rendered her unconscious without causing permanent damage. The remaining two attacked simultaneously, one wielding earth magic that erupted from below, the other launching what appeared to be poison-infused daggers. Naruto stepped between dimensions, a technique he'd discovered rather than learned. For a split second, he existed partially outside normal space, allowing both attacks to pass through his location. Reappearing behind them, he placed a hand on each of their shoulders. Chaos Dragon's sleeping whisper. Both men collapsed instantly, their nervous systems temporarily overloaded by precisely calibrated chaos energy. Naruto straightened, adjusting the black headband that kept his unruly blonde hair from his eyes. 4 down, 8 to go. He focused his senses toward the southern gate, detecting the second team already engaging with the town's meager defenses. As he sprinted across the rooftops, Naruto considered his options. The southern team would have alerted the central group by now. Subtlety was becoming less viable. The scene at the southern gate confirmed his assessment. 2 village guards lay wounded but alive while the 4 raiders prepared to advance. Their magic signatures suggested 3 element users, fire, lightning, and water, plus what appeared to be some form of transformation magic. Naruto dropped directly into their path, landing in a crouch that sent cracks webbing through the cobblestones beneath his feet. That's far enough, he stated, rising slowly to his full height. Turn around, and you might still have functioning limbs by sundown. The fire mage sneered, flame already dancing between his fingers. We were told to expect resistance. Not from the Dragon Sage himself, but this changes nothing. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Dragon Sage, creative, but if you know that name, you should also know what happens next. We outnumber you, the transformation mage growled, his arms already elongating into serrated blades. Naruto sighed. That's rarely helped anyone before. The 4 attacked in concert, their magics combining in a practiced assault pattern. Fire and lightning merged into a superheated plasma wave while water formed pressurized cutting jets behind it. The transformation mage launched himself above the elemental attack, bladed limbs poised to strike should Naruto evade. Instead of dodging, Naruto inhaled deeply. Chaos Dragon's roar. The spiraling vortex that erupted from his mouth wasn't the uncontrolled destruction his father would have unleashed. Naruto's roar was precisely focused, splitting the elemental attack down the middle while creating a vacuum tunnel that pulled the transformation mage off his trajectory. All 4 raiders found themselves caught in the aftermath, not destroyed, but incapacitated. By the calculated pressure differentials Naruto had woven into his breath attack. As the dust settled, Naruto approached the fallen raiders. He crouched beside the fire mage, who stared back with a mixture of fear and defiance. Who sent you? Naruto asked quietly. No one you need to worry about, the mage spat blood to one side. We're just the messengers. The ones coming for you won't be so easily defeated. Coming for me specifically, or just the artifacts? The mage laughed, a wet, unpleasant sound. Both. The artifacts are the bait. You're the prize. Naruto's eyes narrowed. This was the 3rd such coincidence in 2 months. Raiders appearing in whatever region he passed through, as if following his movements. Someone was tracking him, using innocent villages as lures. Who? He demanded, allowing a fraction of his magical pressure to intensify. The mage's defiance crumbled under the weight of that pressure. I don't know names. The contract came through standard Dark Guild channels. All I know is they're paying 10 times the normal rate, and they specifically mentioned drawing out the Dragon Sage. Naruto stood, processing this information. The pattern was becoming clearer. But the motivation remained obscure. Was someone seeking Acnologia through him? Or was this related to the convergence his father had mentioned years ago? A distant explosion interrupted his thoughts. The central team had begun their assault on the village square. Naruto cursed under his breath. He'd taken too long. As he raced toward the disturbance, Naruto extended his senses beyond normal limitations. Entering what he privately called sage awareness, he could perceive not just magic but the intent behind it. The central team radiated not just aggression but calculated malice. They weren't just creating a diversion, they were deliberately targeting civilians. The village square had transformed into chaos. Market stalls burned as panicked villagers fled in all directions. At the center stood 4 figures, each emanating magic far more refined than their companions. Their leader, a woman with silver hair and eyes like frozen amber, directed the assault with casual gestures. The artifacts in the vault were secondary, they were creating a spectacle. Naruto landed in the square, absorbing the impact by channeling it into the surrounding air. The pressure wave extinguished several fires and drew the raiders' attention. "Looking for me," he called, rolling his shoulders as he assessed his opponents. The silver-haired woman smiled, revealing teeth filed to points. "The dragon sage honors us with his presence. Right on schedule." "I don't appreciate being scheduled," Naruto replied, his voice deceptively calm. "Especially when innocents pay the price for your invitation. Collateral damage is unavoidable in our line of work," she shrugged. "But your reputation for heroism made this approach necessary." Naruto noticed movement behind the woman, a small child crawling from beneath a collapsed market stall. The raiders hadn't spotted the girl yet, but she was directly in the potential line of fire. He needed to redirect their attention. 4-0. "F your colleagues tried to ambush me from the west," Naruto said, casually circling to draw their focus away from the child. 4 more failed at the southern gate. "What makes you think you'll fare any better?" The woman's smile didn't waver. "Because unlike them, we came prepared specifically for you." She raised her hand, revealing an ancient-looking lacrima embedded in her palm. "Anti-dragon technology, salvaged from an era when humans had to defend themselves against your father's kind." Naruto's eyes narrowed. The lacrima pulsed with energy that disturbed the natural flow of ethernano around it. Not just any technology, something designed to disrupt Dragon Slayer magic. The child behind them had nearly reached safety. Just a few more seconds of distraction. "Interesting toy," Naruto commented. "Mind if I take a closer look?" He lunged forward, faster than most mages could track. But instead of attacking directly, he feinted, drawing the woman's defensive reaction. As expected, she activated the lacrima, which emitted a frequency that should have disrupted his Dragon Slayer abilities. "Should have." Naruto smiled as confusion flickered across her face. His magic didn't falter. "Anti-dragon technology only works against pure Dragon Slayer magic," he explained, golden energy beginning to outline his form. "But I'm not just a Dragon Slayer." The spiral markings on Hi's cheeks darkened as he drew in natural energy, combining it with his internal magic. The result was something unique, neither pure Dragon Slayer magic nor the mysterious chakra energy that seemed his birthright. But a fusion the world had never seen before. Sage art. Chaotic dispersion. Naruto slammed his palm into the ground. Golden energy rippled outward in concentric circles, carefully calibrated to pass harmlessly through ordinary humans while disrupting the specific magical frequencies used by the raiders. All 4 dark mages found their magic temporarily sealed, their connections to ethernano severed. The silver-haired woman staggered backward, the lacrima in her palm now dark and inert. "Impossible. What are you?" "Complicated," Naruto answered truthfully. "Now, before I hand you over to the authorities, who sent you?" Fear replaced her earlier confidence. "We never met the client directly. The job came through a broker in Crocus, a man with red eyes and a black cloak. He paid in ancient coins and said you'd understand the significance." Ancient coins. Red eyes. Naruto's mind raced through possibilities, none of them reassuring. Could it be related to Zirf, the legendary black wizard? Or something connected to the increasing dimensional disturbances he'd been sensing? The child had reached safety, disappearing down an alley where other villagers waited. Naruto's tension eased slightly. "These artifacts you were sent to steal, what exactly are they?" The woman hesitated, then apparently decided cooperation might lengthen her lifespan. "Celestial keys," Not the standard zodiac or silver keys. Something older. Predating modern celestial magic. Naruto frowned. Celestial artifacts connected to dragons was an uncommon intersection. His father had mentioned celestial magic only once, dismissing it as human attempts to harness powers beyond their comprehension. The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted further questioning. Village authorities, AC. Accompanied by what appeared to be a small contingent of Rune Knights, the military branch of the Magic Council. Perfect. The last thing Naruto needed was council attention. He quickly bound the raider with chaos-infused restraints that would hold until the authorities took custody, then stepped back, preparing to disappear before the Rune Knights arrived. Wait, the silver-haired woman called. He said to give you a message. Naruto paused. I'm listening, he said. The spirals connect worlds. Follow them to find what you seek. The words struck Naruto like a physical blow. Spirals. Like the markings on his cheeks. Like the patterns he instinctively incorporated into his magic. Patterns his father had once called remnants of your original inheritance. Without another word, Naruto vanished, using Chaos Dragon's whisper to bend light around himself as he scaled a nearby building and disappeared across the rooftops. By the time the Rune Knights reached the square, the dragon's age was nothing more than a rumor on villagers' lips and a headache in the Knights' reports. Lucy Heartfilia adjusted her celestial keys at her hip as she navigated the crowded streets of Shiratsu. The small town wasn't her planned destination, but the train breakdown had left her stranded until repairs could be completed. Just my luck, she muttered to herself. First the rent due, then this delay. If I don't make it to Harjan by tomorrow, I'll miss the only celestial magic shop on my list. Her celestial spirits were more than magical tools to her, they were friends, partners. The thought of finding another key, another spirit to join her growing family, quickened her steps despite her fatigue. Rounding a corner, Lucy paused at the unusual activity ahead. Rune Knights escort, D-bound prisoners through the square while village workers cleared debris from what appeared to be a recent battle. Curiosity piqued, she approached a nearby fruit vendor who was riding his overturned cart. What happened here? Lucy asked, helping the elderly man retrieve scattered apples. Dark Guild raid, he replied, gratitude evident in his rheumy eyes. Would have been much worse if not for the young man who stopped them. Lucy placed the recovered fruit in the vendor's basket. Young man, from the village. The old man chuckled. No, a traveler. Powerful mage with blonde hair and strange markings on his face. Folks are saying he's the dragon sage. Lucy stilled. Dragon sage. I've never heard of such a mage. Not surprised. He appears and disappears like mist. Been story. Circulating these past few years. A young man with the power of dragons who doesn't destroy like they do. Controls it somehow. The vendor leaned closer. Some say he's Acnologia's son, though speaking that name brings bad fortune. Lucy suppressed a shiver. Everyone in Fury knew of Acnologia, the black dragon of the apocalypse. The idea of his son, if such a person existed, wandering the Count R.'s side was equally fascinating and terrifying. Where did he go after the fight? She asked, trying to sound casual. The vendor pointed toward the eastern hills. Some of the children said they saw him heading that way, toward the old shrine ruins. Been abandoned for centuries, that place has. Lucy thanked him with a genuine smile and a few jewels for the information. Her logical side suggested continuing to the inn and waiting for train service to resume. Her adventurous side, the part that had pushed her to leave home and find her own path, pulled her toward the eastern hills. A short detour couldn't hurt. If nothing else, ancient ruins might hold historical information about celestial magic. And if rumors of a dragon sage proved true, well, that would certainly be worth writing about in her journal. Naruto knelt before the weathered stone altar, tracing spiral patterns carved into its surface. The ruins around him predated even his father's memories, a circular temple complex dedicated to celestial forces long forgotten. The silver-haired woman's message echoed in his thoughts. The spirals connect worlds. These ruins contained dozens of spiral patterns, each slightly different from the others. Some resembled the birthmarks on his cheeks. Others matched the instinctive patterns he wove into his magic. What were you trying to tell me, father? He murmured, finger continuing their exploration of the ancient stone. Acnologia had never been forthcoming about Naruto's origins. When pressed, the dragon would only say, "You came from beyond, child of convergence. The spiral is your inheritance. Just as chaos is your adoption. A convergence of worlds, spirals as connections." The concept resonated with something deep within Naruto's being, a knowledge just beyond conscious reach. He closed his eyes, entering his meditative state. Natural energy flowed around and through him, highlighting the temple's hidden pathways. The stone beneath his palm grew warmer, as his combined energies interacted with dormant patterns in the altar. Faint golden light began to trace the spiral carvings, spreading outward from his touch like ripples in water. The ruins were responding to him, or more precisely, to the unique combination of energies he embodied. "Fascinating," a female voice commented from behind him. Naruto was on his feet in an instant, turning to face T. He intruder while maintaining contact with the activated altar. A young woman stood at the temple entrance, blonde hair framing an intelligent face. Her hand rested casually on a ring of keys at her hip. Celestial keys, Naruto realized. "I didn't mean to startle you," she said, taking a careful step forward. "I'm Lucy Heartfilia. I heard about what you did in the village." Naruto studied her with senses that went beyond the physical. Her magic signature was unique, celestial in nature, but with unusual strength and resonance. Something about her energy patterns complemented his own in ways he didn't understand. "You shouldn't be here," he replied, though without hostility. "These ruins aren't stable." Lucy smiled slightly. "They seem to be responding quite well to you. Those patterns, they're ancient celestial markers. I've seen similar symbols in some of my mother's research books." Naruto's interest sharpened. "You know what these spirals represent?" "Not exactly," Lucy admitted, moving closer to examine the glowing patterns. "But celestial magic has always involved connections between worlds, our world and the celestial spirit realm. These might represent pathways or gateways." She gestured to her keys. "Each of my celestial spirits exists in their own realm until I call them through their gates. These spirals, they look like much more complex gates." Naruto considered her words. Gates between worlds aligned with his fragmented understanding of his own nature, the constant sense of being connected to something beyond Earthland's boundaries. "You're the dragon sage, aren't you?" Lucy asked, studying his marked cheeks and the distinctive magical energy emanating from him. "That's what they've taken to calling me," Naruto acknowledged. "My name is Naruto. Just Naruto. No family name." A shadow crossed his features. Acnologia isn't known for family registries. Lucy's eyes widened slightly, but to Naruto's surprise, she didn't retreat in fear. Instead, she stepped closer, her gaze analytical rather than frightened. "So it's true. You're his son." "Adopted," Naruto clarified. "He found me as an infant. Raised me until I was 10, then disappeared 7 years ago. And you're looking for him." Naruto turned back to the altar, where the spiral patterns continued their slow illumination. "I'm looking for answers. About him. About myself. About these." He gestured to the markings on his cheeks. Lucy leaned closer, studying the spiral patterns with genuine interest. "They're birthmarks. They look almost like seals in celestial magic." "Seals?" Lucy nodded. "In advanced celestial magic, certain gates or powers can be sealed using spiral formations. They contain indirect energy flows between realms." The explanation resonated with Naruto's instinctive understanding of his own abilities. The way he naturally shaped his magic into spiral patterns. The way natural energy responded differently to him than to other dragon slayers he'd encountered. A tremor ran through the ruins, subtle but unmistakable. The activated spirals pulsed brighter as something responded to their energy. "We should leave," Naruto said, sensing instability in the magical resonance. "Something's waking up." Lucy hesitated, her researcher's curiosity evident. "But if these are celestial gates, they're responding to both of us," Naruto interrupted. "Your celestial magic and whatever I am, they're creating an unplanned interaction." As if confirming his assessment, the tremors intensified. Dust and small stones began to fall from the ancient ceiling. The spiral patterns now pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat, growing faster by the second. Naruto made a quick decision. Grabbing Lucy's hand, he pulled her toward the exit. Questions later. Survival first. They sprinted through the crumbling temple corridor as larger stones began to fall around them. Lucy kept pace admirably, demonstrating fitness that surprised Naruto. Most scholars he'd encountered lacked her physical capabilities. Just as they reached the temple entrance, a massive stone block crashed down, blocking their exit. Lucy skidded to a halt beside Naruto, keys already in hand. Open. Gate of the Golden Bull. Taurus. In a flash of golden light, an enormous humanoid bull wielding a massive axe appeared. Without waiting for instructions, Taurus swung his weapon at the blockage, shattering the stone. Impressive, Naruto commented as they continued their escape. Lucy managed a smile despite the danger. My spirits are partners, not tools. Taurus knows what I need without me having to spell it out. Quote, they emerged into daylight just as the temple's central dome collapsed inward. A column of golden light erupted from the ruins, shooting skyward before dissipating into the atmosphere. Naruto and Lucy watched from a safe distance as the energy discharge faded, leaving the ruins smoking but otherwise unchanged in appearance. What did we just activate? Lucy wondered aloud. Nothing good, Naruto replied grimly. That energy signature, it wasn't just going up. It was going out, like a beacon. A beacon to what, or whom? Naruto's expression darkened. I'm not sure, but we should. A new tremor cut off his words, this one different from before. Not originating from the ruins, but from the earth beneath their feet. The ground between them and the ruins split open, revealing a yawning chasm that widened with alarming speed. Lucy lost her footing as the edge crumbled beneath her. Her startled cry was cut short as Naruto grabbed her wrist, his other hand anchoring them to stable ground with chaos-infused energy that hardened the earth beneath his palm. With a single powerful movement, he pulled her to safety beside him. They scrambled further from the expanding fissure, watching as it eventually stabilized into a ravine nearly 30 feet across. Are you hurt? Naruto asked, scanning Lucy for injuries. She shook her head, slightly breathless. No, thanks to you. Quick reflexes. Dragon Slayer advantage, he replied with a shrug. Enhanced everything. Lucy studied him with renewed interest. You don't act like I'd expect Acnologia's son to act. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Disappointed I'm not destroying everything in sight. No, she said thoughtfully. Impressed that you're not. That kind of power with that kind of control, it says something about you. Quote, before Naruto could respond, movement from the ravine caught their attention. Something was emerging from the depths, something ancient and decidedly magical. A skeletal hand, comprised entirely of golden celestial energy, gripped the edge of the chasm. It was followed by another, then a massive skull as a celestial entity pulled itself from the earth. The creature stood nearly 20 feet tall, its skeleton structure pulsing with the same energy that had illuminated the temple spirals. A celestial guardian, Lucy whispered, awe mixing with apprehension. I've read about them, but they're supposed to be myths. The guardian's empty eye sockets fixed on them, or more specifically, on Naruto. Its jaw opened in a silent roar as it began moving toward them with surprising speed. Myths seem to become reality around me, Naruto commented dryly, stepping protectively in front of Lucy. Stay back, I'll handle this. Lucy moved beside him instead, keys already in hand. I can fight too, and that's a celestial entity, my magic might be more effective. Naruto assessed her determined expression and nodded. Partnership it is, then. Try to identify. Why any weaknesses while I keep it occupied? He dashed forward, gathering chaos energy in precise amounts. The guardian swung a massive arm toward him, but Naruto vaulted over it, landing on the creature's forearm. He ran up the limb toward its skull, dodging another attempt to dislodge him. Chaos Dragon's precision strike, Naruto's fist, wreathed in swirling black and purple energy, struck Guardian's skull directly between its eye sockets. The impact should have shattered stone, but the celestial entity merely staggered backward, its structure temporarily distorted before reforming. Physical attacks aren't very effective, Lucy called out, analyzing the Guardian's reactions. It's pure celestial energy given form. She raised a golden key. Open. Gate of the Archer. Sagittarius. A man in a horse costume appeared. Bow already knocked with an arrow that glowed with celestial power. Aim for the center of its chest. Lucy commanded. There's a concentration of energy there. Sagittarius fired with perfect accuracy, his arrow striking the guardian's sternum. The creature recoiled as if in pain, the golden energy around the impact point fluctuating wildly. "Good call," Naruto shouted, leaping clear as the guardian attempted to crush him. "It's vulnerable to celestial magic." He landed beside Lucy, quickly formulating a plan. "My chaos magic disrupts energy flows. Celestial magic can target specific vulnerabilities. Together, we can overload its form," Lucy finished, understanding immediately. Naruto grinned at her quick uptake. "I'll create an opening. Have your archer ready." Without waiting for acknowledgement, Naruto charged forward again. This time, instead of attacking directly, he circled the guardian, forcing it to turn away from Lucy and Sagittarius. Chaos Dragon's roiling mist. He exhaled a cloud of chaotic particles that surrounded the guardian, disrupting the coherence of its energy form. The creature stumbled, its movements becoming erratic as it struggled to maintain its structure. "Now," Naruto shouted. Sagittarius fired 3 arrows in rapid succession, each striking the guardian's chest where its energy core pulsed brightest. Lucy simultaneously summoned a second spirit. "Open, Gate of the Lion." Leo, a well-dressed man with wild orange hair appeared, adjusting his glasses before charging his fists with celestial light. Regulus impact. Leo's attack struck simultaneously with Sagittarius's arrows, creating a resonance cascade through the guardian's form. The creature froze, golden light fluctuating violently. Naruto seized the opportunity, leaping high above the guardian. Drawing in natural energy to complement his Dragon Slayer magic, he entered a partial Sage Mode state. The markings on his cheeks darkened and extended as golden energy outlined his form. Dragon Sage Art. Chaos Dissolution. He plummeted toward the guardian, both hands extended. Upon contact with the creature's skull, Naruto's combined energies flowed into the celestial entity like water finding cracks in stone. The guardian's form began to disintegrate, golden particles scattering harmlessly into the atmosphere. As the last of the entity dissolved, Naruto landed beside Lucy, who had dismissed Sagittarius while Leo remained vigilant for further threats. "That was..." Lucy paused, searching for words. "Complicated," Naruto suggested. "Incredible," she corrected. "Your magic, it's not just Dragon Slayer abilities. There's something else mixed in." Naruto nodded, allowing the sage energy to fade. "Something I was born with, according to Acnologia. He called it my original inheritance, but never explained further." Leo approached, studying Naruto with evident interest. "Your energy signature is unlike anything in the Celestial Spirit King's records," the spirit observed. "There are elements that resonate with celestial magic, but structured differently, almost like they're from beyond our dimensional framework." Lucy looked between her spirit and Naruto. "Leo has existed for centuries. If he doesn't recognize your energy type, then it confirms what I've suspected," Naruto finished. "I'm not originally from this world." The statement hung in the air, giving voice to a truth Naruto had felt but never fully acknowledged. Leo adjusted his glasses thoughtfully. "The old ruins, the guardian, they reacted to both of you. Lucis pure celestial magic and your hybrid energy. Together, you triggered something significant. A beacon," Naruto repeated his earlier assessment. "But signaling what, or where?" Leo's expression grew serious. "When celestial energy patterns like this activate, they're typically communicating across dimensional boundaries. You may have opened a channel between worlds." The implications settled heavily on Naruto's shoulders. If his suspicions were correct, if he truly came from another world, then the activated ruins might have signaled his original home. Or worse, signaled his location to those who might be searching for him. "I need to go," Naruto said abruptly. "Being around me isn't safe until I understand what's happening." Lucy dismissed Leo with a grateful nod before turning to Naruto. "Running alone isn't the answer. These ruins, that guardian, they responded to our combined magic. What if understanding your origins requires both types of energy?" Naruto hesitated, weighing her logic against his instinct to protect others by maintaining distance. "You're offering to help a stranger who might be attracting dimensional catastrophes." Lucy smiled, surprising him again with her courage. "I'm offering to help someone who saved a village this morning and then saved me from falling into a chasm. Besides, I'm a celestial mage researching ancient keys and gates. This is literally my field of study." Her directness was refreshing after years of people either fearing his connection to Acnologia or seeking to use his power for their own ends. "Where were you headed before this detour?" he asked. "Harjan," she replied. "There's a magic shop there that supposedly has rare celestial items. After that, I was considering joining a guild. Mages are stronger together, and I could use the work." Naruto considered the coincidence, or perhaps not coincidence, of their meeting. The spirals, the celestial connections, the guardian's appearance, all suggesting a path forward he couldn't yet fully comprehend. "I've been avoiding magic guilds," he admitted. "Too much attention. But Harjan is as good a direction as any, and I could use insights from someone who understands celestial gates." Lucy extended her hand. "Partners for the journey, then. At least until Harjan." Naruto studied her offered hand, sensing no deception in her proposal. Only genuine curiosity and a determination that mirrored his own search for answers. He clasped her hand firmly. "Partners to Harjan." As they turned away from the ruins, neither noticed. The smallest spiral pattern on the fallen altar began to pulse once more, a tiny beacon sending its signal across dimensions toward a world where ninja-wielded chakra and tailed beasts roamed the lands. A world where the name Uzumaki once meant masters of sealing spirals and bridges between realms. A world where a masked man with a single red eye paused in his machinations, sensing a distant resonance he had thought lost forever. "Found you," Madara Uchiha whispered to himself, child of prophecy. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Guild of Fairies. Morning light spilled through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across Fairy Tale's boisterous main hall. Mirajan Strauss hummed softly while polishing already gleaming glasses behind the bar counter, occasionally glancing toward the guild's massive wooden doors. Something felt different about today, a subtle shift in the ambient ethernano that tingled against her demonic sensitivities. "Another round, Mira," Kana called from her usual table, empty barrel already tipped beside her. Mirajan smiled. "It's barely past breakfast, Kana." "Somewhere it's dinner time," the card mage countered with a wink. The playful exchange was interrupted by a sudden hush falling over the normally raucous guild hall. Mirajan followed her guildmate's gazes toward the entrance where Master Makarov stood frozen, his diminutive form rigid with attention. "This magical pressure," the elderly guild master murmured. The massive doors swung open to reveal two figures silhouetted against the bright morning light. Lucy Heartfilia stepped through first, her familiar blonde hair and cheerful wave instantly recognizable despite her week-long absence. But it was her companion who commanded the guild's collective attention. Tall and powerfully built, the young man carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone intimately familiar with his own capabilities. Wild blonde hair framed a handsome face marked by 6 whisker-like spirals, 3 on each cheek. His sleeveless black coat with spiral patterns along its hem revealed forearms wrapped in protective bandages, while a headband kept unruly locks from intense blue eyes that eyed the guild with calculated precision. What arrested Mirajan's senses wasn't his appearance, striking though it was. It was the magical signature he radiated, controlled but unmistakably draconic in nature. Yet somehow different from anything she'd encountered before. Darker, more primordial, interwoven with something else entirely. "Lucy," Levy called from her reading table, breaking the silence. "We were getting worried." Lucy beamed, waving enthusiastically. "Sorry for disappearing. The train broke down in Shiratsum, and I got caught up in an adventure." She turned toward her companion. "Everyone, this is Naruto." "Naruto. This is Fairy Tale." Naruto inclined his head slightly, his expression betraying nothing beyond polite acknowledgement. "Thank you for having me." Makarov approached the pair, his experienced eyes never leaving Naruto. "Welcome to Fairy Tale, young man. I am Makarov, the guild master. Your magic is distinctive." A half-smile touched Naruto's lips. "So I've been told." Before Makarov could respond, a pink-haired figure vaulted over several tables, landing with cat-like agility before the newcomers. Natsu Dragneel's nostrils flared as he took in Naruto's scent, his draconic instincts visibly triggering. "You smell like a dragon," Natsu declared bluntly, excitement and suspicion warring in his voice. "Are you a dragon slayer? Which dragon raised you?" The temperature in the guild seemed to drop several degrees. Naruto's expression remained neutral, but his magical presence condensed slightly, not threatening, but definitely preparing. "Natsu, Lucy began nervously. Maybe we should. Acnologia. The single word fell like a stone into still water. Ripples of shock and fear spread throughout the guild hall. Glasses shattered as they slipped from suddenly nerveless fingers. Chairs scraped against wooden floors as members instinctively backed away. Mirajan noticed a small blue-haired girl, Wendy Marvell, their youngest dragon slayer, go absolutely pale. The Sky Dragon Slayer's hands trembled uncontrollably as she ducked behind Carla, her Exceed companion. That's not funny, Natsu growled, flames beginning to lick around his clenched fists. Acnologia is a monster. He's destroyed entire countries. He's my adoptive father, Naruto finished calmly. I'm aware of his reputation. A flash of scarlet announced Urza Scarlet's intervention as she stepped between the two men. Natsu, stand down. Her commanding tone brooked no argument. The S-class mage turned her calculating gaze toward Naruto. You claim to be raised by the Black Dragon. Until I was 10, Naruto confirmed. He disappeared 7 years ago. I've been looking for answers ever since. Makarov's weathered face had grown grave. Lucy, perhaps you should explain how you came to travel with this young man. Lucy straightened, her determined expression suggesting she'd anticipated resistance. Naruto saved Shiratsum village from Dark Guild raiders. Then, he saved me when we accidentally activated some ancient celestial ruins. He could have left me behind multiple times, but he didn't. She stepped closer to Naruto, her stance clearly supportive. Master, there's more. The ruins we found contained spiral patterns that responded to both our magic, my celestial keys and Naruto's unique energy. We think it might be connected to his origins before Acnologia found him. Before, Makarov questioned sharply. Naruto's gaze swept across the guild members, assessing their reactions before responding. I wasn't born a dragon slayer. Acnologia found me as an infant and raised me with his magic. But these, he gestured to the spiral markings on his cheeks, are birthmarks. They connect to abilities I have that no dragon slayer should possess. What kind of abilities? Urza asked, her hand never straying far from her sword hilt. Instead of answering verbally, Naruto raised his palm. Golden energy, distinctly different from his chaotic Drago, Slayer magic, began to form a perfect sphere that rotated in multiple directions simultaneously. The spiraling ball illuminated the guild hall with warm light completely unlike the destructive power they associated with Acnologia. Natural energy manipulation, Naruto explained. I can sense, gather, and shape the ambient energy of the world in ways Acnologia never taught me. It's instinctive, like it's part of my original nature. From her position behind the bar, Mirajan observed the fascinating contradiction this stranger presented. His controlled demeanor defied everything known about Acnologia's destructive essence. Yet the underlying chaos magic was unmistakably authentic. More intriguing was this secondary power he demonstrated. Not quite takeover magic, not quite holder magic, but something that seemed to bridge multiple magical disciplines. A soft sob interrupted the tense exchange. All eyes turned toward Wendy, who had stepped from behind Carla with tears streaming down her face. You were with him when he attacked, she whispered, voice breaking. 7 years ago, the sky went dark over Tenro Island. We heard his roar. We felt his magic. Her small frame trembled. Grandini told me to run if I ever sensed that power. She said no dragon slayer could survive Acnologia's wrath. Naruto's expression softened perceptibly. I wasn't with him during any attack on Tenro Island. I was searching for him by then. Liar. Natsu shouted, flames erupting around his body. I'd never forget that magic. It was the same, exactly the same as what you're hiding underneath whatever this golden stuff is. Quote, Natsu. Lucy protested. He's not. The Fire Dragon Slayer lunged, fist blazing toward Naruto's face. Fire Dragon's iron fist. What happened next occurred so rapidly that most guild members could barely follow the movement. Naruto didn't dodge. Instead, he caught Natsu's flaming fist in his palm, chaos magic swirling to neutralize the flames while the golden energy created a buffer that prevented direct contact between their skin. I understand your reaction, Naruto said quietly, holding Natsu's attack without apparent effort. But I'm not your enemy. Natsu struggled against the immovable grip. Let go and fight me properly. That would damage the guild hall, Naruto replied reasonably. And I'm a guest. The calm response seemed to inflame Natsu further. He pulled back for another strike, only to freeze as Makarov's enlarged hand descended between the two. Enough, the guild master commanded. Natsu, stand down immediately. Reluctantly, the fire dragon slayer backed away, though his suspicious glare never left Naruto. Makarov turned to the newcomer with a measured expression. While I appreciate your restraint, you must understand our caution. Acnologia is the most feared being in our world. His mere name causes panic. If you truly were raised by him, then I should be just as destructive. Naruto finished. Just as merciless. I understand the assumption. I've lived with it for 17 years. He let his chaos magic surface briefly, black and purple energy swirling around his form before being precisely contained once more. I carry his power, but not his purpose. What that purpose actually is, even I don't fully understand. That's part of why I'm searching for answers. Makarov studied him intently. And these answers led you to my guild because... Lucy stepped forward. That was my suggestion, Master. The celestial ruins we found were only the beginning. I believe Naruto's origins might be connected to celestial magic in ways we don't yet understand. Fairy Tail has resources, knowledge, and more dragon slayers who might recognize aspects of his abilities, Makarov concluded, his shrewd eyes never leaving Naruto. Including a sky dragon slayer who specializes in healing magic. Wendy flinched at the implied connection, but her natural compassion warred visibly with her fear. Why you want me to examine him, Master? Only if you're comfortable doing so, child. The young dragon slayer straightened slightly, gathering her courage. I can try. Grandini taught me to sense magical pathways. If there's something unusual about his magic circulation. Naruto looked directly at Wendy, his expression softening further. I won't force you to be near me if it frightens you. I understand what Acnologia represents to other dragon slayers. The simple acknowledgement of her fear seemed to steady the young girl. She approached cautiously, stopping several feet away. Could you show both types of magic again? Side by side, Naruto nodded, extending both hands. In his left palm, Chaos Dragon Slayer magic swirled, controlled but unmistakably destructive in nature. In his right, the golden natural energy formed into a perfect spiraling sphere. Wendy closed her eyes, extending her magical senses rather than relying on visual cues. Her expression shifted from concentration to surprise, then to confusion. They're completely different, she said finally, opening her eyes. The Dragon Slayer magic is like Natsu's or Gajil's, but darker, more primal. But other energy, she shook her head in wonderment. It's not magic. Not exactly. It flows differently, like it's part of your life force itself. Naruto's eyebrow raised slightly. Not magic. Not Ethernano-based magic, Wendy clarified. It's like your body produces it naturally, instead of drawing it from the environment the way we use Ethernano. Lucy's eyes widened. That matches what happened at the ruins. The spirals responded to both of us differently. My keys drew on celestial Ethernano, but Naruto's energy came from within him. The academic revelation was interrupted by the guild doors slamming open once more. A breathless Leo the lion in his human guise, burst in, his expression uncharacteristically alarmed. Lucy, thank goodness you made it here, he panted, adjusting his glasses. We have trouble, big trouble. Naruto tensed immediately. The celestial guardian wasn't the end of it. Not even close, Locke confirmed grimly. That beacon you triggered, it didn't just signal across dimensions. It alerted the Magic Council. Their hunter division is mobilizing. 15 mages at minimum, specialized in Dragon Slayer containment. Hunter division? Lucy questioned. I've never heard of them. Makarov's expression darkened. They exist. A covert unit created after Dragon King Festival incidents to track and neutralize draconic threats. Officially disbanded, unofficially very active. How long? Naruto asked Locke. An hour. Maybe less. They were already in the region tracking magical disturbances. The revelation hung heavily in the guild hall. Fairy Tail members exchanged uncertain glances, their earlier caution now complicated by this new threat. Council hunters were notorious for collateral damage when pursuing targets. Naruto turned to Makarov, decision already made. I'll leave immediately. This is your guild's home. I won't bring council problems to your doorstep. Wait. Lucy protested. We just got here. The answers we're looking for can wait until there aren't specialists hunting me, Naruto finished firmly. Makarov raised a hand. Before you make hasty decisions, young man, answer me one question. His eyes bored into Naruto's with surprising intensity. Did you come to Fairy Tail seeking sanctuary, knowledge, or something else entirely? Naruto met the guild master's gaze unflinchingly. Truth. About who I am beyond being Acnologia's son. About these abilities I have that no dragon slayer should possess. About why dark guilds keep appearing wherever I travel, as if someone's using them to track me. His Andor seemed to satisfy something in Makarov's assessment. The elderly man nodded almost imperceptibly before turning to address his guild. Fairy Tail has never turned away those seeking honest answers, no matter how complicated their past. Nor have we ever bowed to council pressure when it contradicts our principles. He looked around at the uncertain faces. But I won't decide this for everyone. This young man carries magic that frightens even our bravest members. If he stays, council hunters will come. Mirajan stepped forward from behind the bar, her gentle voice carrying easily in the hushed hall. Master, if I may. At his nod, she addressed the guild. I sense the darkness in his magic, similar to what I once carried before learning control. But I also sense his restraint. Whatever Acnologia's influence, this young man is fighting to be his own person. Her support visibly surprised Naruto, who had clearly expected universal rejection. Urza crossed her armored arms. I agree with Myra's assessment. His control when Natsu attacked was precise, defensive rather than retaliatory. That speaks to character. Natsu, still sulking from his failed attack, reluctantly added, he doesn't smell like he's lying. And if he really wants to understand his magic better. The Fire Dragon Slayer shrugged. I get that. I'd do anything to learn more about Igneal. One by one, guild members voiced cautious support or at least acceptance. Only Wendy remained silent, her internal conflict visible in her expressive eyes. Finally, the young Sky Dragon Slayer stepped forward. Acnologia killed many dragons, including maybe Grandini. Her voice trembled but remained determined. But you're not him, and if you're trying to understand powers that aren't from him, I think that's worth helping with. She extended a small hand toward Naruto. I'm Wendy Marvell, and I'd like to help you understand your non-dragon magic, if you'll let me. The gesture visibly moved Naruto. He knelt to bring himself closer to her eye level, his movements deliberately slow and non-threatening. With equal care, he accepted her offered hand. Thank you, Wendy Marvell. I promise your trust won't be misplaced. The touching moment was interrupted by a subtle vibration that ran through the guild hall's foundation. Locke rushed to a window, his expression confirming their worst fears. They're here already, council hunters, and they've brought containment specialists. Makarov's diminutive form seemed to grow more imposing without actually changing size. Well then, we'd better greet our unexpected guests. Urza, Mirajan, with me, everyone else, maintain calm but be prepared. As the guild master moved toward the entrance, Naruto called after him. This isn't your fight. I can surrender to them and explain. Surrender to council hunters. Makarov scoffed without breaking stride. They don't take explanations, boy. They take trophies. The implication hung in the air as the guild master, accompanied by his S-class mages, stepped outside to confront the approaching threat. Councillor Julius Lahar considered himself a reasonable man. As head of the custody enforcement unit, he believed in proper procedure, fair assessment, and proportional response. These principles had often put him at odds with the more aggressive factions within the Magic Council, particularly the covert hunter division that technically shouldn't exist at all. Yet here he stood on the outskirts of Magnolia, watching Commander Alexei deploy 15 specialized mages in tactical formation around the Fairy Tail Guild Hall. The Hunter Division operated under Council authority but not Council oversight, a distinction that had always troubled Lahar's sense of justice. This operation exceeds parameters, Lahar stated coldly. Adjusting his glasses, the Council authorized reconnaissance and assessment, not a containment strike. Commander Alexei, a hulking man whose face remained perpetually hidden behind an expressionless metal mask, continued arranging magical barriers without acknowledging the criticism. The target's magical signature matches Acnologia's energy pattern with 89% correlation, Alexei responded finally. Protocol dictates immediate neutralization of any entity exceeding 75% correlation. The Council's authorization is appreciated but not required in matters of draconic containment. The target is inside Fairy Tale Guild Hall, Lahar countered. A legal guild under Council protection. This action risks. Fairy Tale harbors a Class S draconic threat, Alexei interrupted flatly. Their legal status is temporarily suspended under Emergency Provision 17b. Once the threat is contained, their status will be restored. Lahar watched with growing unease as Hunter's positioned Lacrima-powered containment devices at strategic points around the guild. These weren't standard magical restraints, they were designed to incapacitate dragon slayers by disrupting their unique magical pathways. At full power, they could cause permanent damage. Commander, I must insist. The guild doors swung open, revealing Makarov Dreyar flanked by Urza Scarlet and Mirajan Strauss. The elderly guild master's expression reflected neither surprise nor intimidation as he surveyed the assembled hunters. Counselor Lahar, Makarov called, pointedly ignoring Alexei. To what do we owe this overwhelming display of council interest in our humble guild? Lahar stepped forward, attempting to salvage some diplomatic approach. Master Makarov, we've detected a concerning magical signature within your guild hall. Protocol requires investigation of any energy pattern closely matching known catastrophic threats. And these preparations, Makarov gestured to the containment devices being positioned. They seem excessive for a simple investigation. Commander Alexei moved beside Lahar. We know you're harboring a dragon slayer with chaos dragon magic. Surrender him immediately, and no action will be taken against Fairy Tale. Makarov's eyes narrowed. My guild harbors several dragon slayers, Commander. All legal mages registered with the council. I've received no notification regarding any of them being classified as threats. Don't play games, Dreyar, Alexei growled. Our sensors detected the activation of ancient celestial magic near Shiratsum, followed by Chaos dragon energy moving directly to your location. Surrender Acnologia's offspring now. Urza stepped forward, hand on sword hilt. And if we refuse this unreasonable demand without proper council warrant, then we are authorized to use necessary force to secure the target, Alexei replied, gesturing to his assembled hunters. Even against a guild as politically connected as Fairy Tale. Inside the guild hall, Naruto listened to the exchange with increasing tension. The hunters had tracked him more efficiently than anticipated, not just following his magical signature, but apparently monitoring the celestial disturbance from the ruins. This suggested resources beyond standard council capabilities. Lucy stood beside him, her determination evident. This is wrong. They can't just demand someone without proper cause. They have cause, Naruto replied quietly. To them, Acnologia's magic is cause enough. He moved toward the entrance. I should go out there. Makarov is risking his guild's standing. A small hand caught his sleeve. Wendy looked up at him, fear still present in her eyes but overshadowed by resolve. That's not how Fairy Tale works. We don't abandon people just because it's convenient. Wendy's right, Natsu declared, flames already dancing around his fists. Council jerks are always overstepping. About time someone pushed back. Outside, the confrontation was escalating. Commander Alexei had given a 10-count ultimatum for surrendering the Acnologia offspring, while Makarov maintained that no such person was subject to council jurisdiction without proper hearing. 9. 8. Alexei counted deliberately, his hunters tensing in preparation. This is unauthorized, Lahar protested. The council will not. 7. 6. The council will thank us once the threat is contained. 5. The guild doors opened again. Naruto stepped out alone, his expression calm despite the dangerous situation. Whispers immediately spread through the hunter ranks as they recognized the distinctive facial markings and controlled magical presence. I am the one you're looking for, Naruto stated clearly. There's no need for conflict with Fairy Tale. Commander Alexei raised a hand, stopping his countdown. Acnologia offspring. You will submit to magical containment and council interrogation regarding your father's whereabouts and activities. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly. My name is Naruto. I haven't seen Acnologia in 7 years, which I would happily explain during a proper council hearing. But I won't submit to whatever those devices are. He nodded toward the containment units. They're designed for Dragon Slayer execution, not restraint. Lahar's head snapped toward Alexei. Execution. Commander, you assured the council. Silence, Counselor, Alexei snapped. The target has hostile intent. All units, containment pattern alpha. The hunters moved with practiced coordination, activating lacrima devices that immediately generated a suppression field around Naruto. The magical pressure was visible as rippling distortions in the air, designed to collapse a Dragon Slayer's magical pathways through precisely calculated frequency disruption. Naruto stood motionless as the field enveloped him. For a moment, it seemed the containment was working, his chaos magic visibly receded under the suppression effect. Then, Den energy began emanating from his body, the same natural energy Wendy had identified as separate from his Dragon Slayer abilities. The containment field fluctuated, its carefully calibrated frequency encountering a type of power they weren't designed to suppress. Secondary magical source detected, one hunter reported urgently. Containment field destabilizing. Alexei's voice betrayed no emotion. All units. Lethal authorization confirmed. Target demonstrates resistance to standard containment. Before the hunters could escalate to deadlier measures, a massive shadow fell over the confrontation. Makarov had expanded to his full giant form, towering over the assembled council forces. That is enough. The guild master's voice boomed. You will not execute anyone on Fairy Tail's doorstep without due process. Simultaneously, Urza re-equipped into her Heaven's Wheel armor, summoning dozens of swords that hovered menacingly above the hunter formation. Mirajan activated her Satan soul, demonic features replacing her usual gentle appearance. The rest of Fairy Tail spilled from the guild hall behind them, presenting a unified front against the council forces. Even those who had initially feared Naruto's connection to Acnologia stood ready to defend against this overreach of authority. Counselor Lahar seized the moment of hesitation. Commander Alexei, I am officially susp. NDING this operation under council oversight protocol. Your authorization was for assessment and potential detention, not summary execution. Alexei turned toward Lahar, his metal mask revealing nothing of his thoughts. The threat assessment has changed, Counselor. The target demonstrates unknown magical capabilities beyond our containment technology. Which is precisely why proper assessment is required, Lahar countered firmly. At council headquarters, with appropriate safeguards and full magical council presence. The standoff stretched for several tense moments. Finally, Alexei gave a curt signal. The hunters reluctantly deactivated their containment devices but maintained their formation. Naruto, Lahar addressed the young man directly. Would you consent to appear before the Magic Council for formal questioning regarding your magic and your connection to Acnologia? With guarantees of fair treatment and no containment measures without cause. Before Naruto could respond, Lucy stepped forward to stand beside him. He'll appear with legal representation from Fairy Tail, with guarantees in writing, and with multiple witnesses present. Lahar raised an eyebrow at the celestial mage's boldness but nodded. Acceptable terms. 3 days hence, at Era. Formal summons will be delivered. He turned to Alexei. Commander, withdraw your forces. The council will review your operational parameters upon our return. Alexei's rigid posture conveyed his displeasure, but even the hunter division couldn't openly defy a counselor's direct order. With mechanical precision, the hunters dismantled their equipment and began retreating from Fairy Tail's grounds. This isn't over, Alexei stated, the words directed at Naruto rather than Lahar. Dragon threats are managed one way or another. The council merely determines how clean the process remains. The implied threat hung in the air as the commander departed with his forces. Only Lahar remained, his expression troubled as he approached Makarov, who had returned to his normal size. That was unnecessarily close to disaster, Master Makarov, the counselor said quietly. A disaster not of our making, Makarov replied evenly. Since when does the council deploy hunter division without proper oversight? Since rumors began circulating about Acnologia's reappearance, Lahar admitted. The council fears another Tenro Island incident, or worse. His gaze shifted to Naruto. Young man, I don't know your full story, but I advise caution in the coming days. Commander Alexei isn't known for accepting defeat gracefully. With that warning, Lahar departed, leaving Fairy Tail to process the confrontation's implications. As the tension gradually dissipated, guild members returned inside, many giving Naruto appreciative nods for his willingness to surrender himself rather than endanger the guild. The gesture wasn't lost on Naruto, whose experience with acceptance had been limited throughout his life. Lucy bumped her shoulder against his. So, that council meeting should be interesting. Despite everything, Naruto found himself smiling slightly. Was that your first time negotiating with council officials? Technically, yes, she admitted with a grin. How did I do? Impressively confident for someone making up legal terms on the spot. Lucy's laughter lightened the moment. I grew up in a household where negotiation was breakfast conversation. Some skills stick with you. As they re-entered the guild hall, Makarov approached them with a thoughtful expression. It seems you bring excitement wherever you go, young Naruto. Perhaps you truly are suited for Fairy Tail. Naruto blinked in surprise. Master Makarov, after what just happened? What just happened? Makarov interrupted, is exactly what happens regularly with this guild. Council overreach, threats, standoffs, eventual compromise. He waved dismissively. We call it Tuesday, around here. The elderly man's eyes twinkled with mischief. But his next words carried serious weight. The question remains, what do you want, Naruto? 3 days until the council hearing gives us time to prepare, or time for you to disappear, if that's your preference. The direct question deserved an equally direct answer. I want to understand who I am beyond Acnologia's son. These powers that aren't Dragon Slayer magic. Naruto glanced toward Wendy, who was watching the exchange with open curiosity. If your Sky Dragon Slayer can help identify what they actually are, that would be a start. Makarov nodded. And after the council hearing, assuming it goes favorably, quote, Naruto considered the question carefully. His instinct had always been to keep moving, stay isolated, protect others from the dangers that seemed to follow him. Yet Fairy Tail had just demonstrated willingness to face those dangers alongside him, something he hadn't experienced before. I don't know, he admitted finally. I've avoided putting down roots anywhere. It seemed irresponsible, given what tends to happen around me. Yet here you stand, in a guild full of people who specialize in handling what tends to happen, Makarov observed with a smile. Think on it. Fairy Tail has welcomed lost souls before. As the guild master walked away, Mirajan approached with a tray of drinks. Her Satan soul form had receded, leaving only her usual gentle smile. Though Naruto had glimpsed the power she concealed beneath that pleasant exterior. You must be thirsty after all that excitement, she offered, extending a cool beverage toward him. I'm Mirajan, by the way. Most people call me Mira. Naruto accepted the drink with genuine gratitude. Thank you for speaking up earlier. Before the hunters arrived, Mirajan's smile contained understanding that went beyond simple kindness. I recognized something in your magic. Control developed through necessity, not just training. The struggle to contain power that wants to be destructive. Her perception was uncomfortably accurate. Naruto studied her more carefully, sensing the demonic energy she kept perfectly regulated beneath her cheerful demeanor. Take over magic, he realized aloud. Soul variant, Satan's soul, she confirmed. My particular demons aren't always cooperative residents. Learning to coexist without letting them dominate took years. How did you manage it? Naruto asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Mirajan gestured around the guild hall. This place, these people, having something to protect changes your relationship with destructive power. Her blue eyes held surprising depth as they met his. You already have remarkable control for someone raised by Acnologia. Imagine what you might achieve with actual support. Before Naruto could respond to her insight, a small voice interrupted them. Excuse me. Wendy stood nearby, fingers nervously intertwined. If you're not too tired, I thought maybe we could. I could try examining your non-dragon magic. Only if you want to. Of course. The young girl's determination despite her obvious lingering fear impressed Naruto. He nodded, crouching slightly to meet her at eye level. I'd appreciate that, Wendy. Whenever you're ready. Mirajan smiled at the exchange. The infirmary would give you some quiet. Through that door and down the hall. She gave Wendy an encouraging wink. I'll bring some tea in a bit. As Wendy led Naruto toward the infirmary, Lucy watched from her seat beside Levi, who was peppering her with questions about the celestial ruins. So these spiral patterns responded to both your magic types? Levi asked, scholar's excitement evident in her voice. Lucy nodded, though her attention remained partly on Naruto's retreating form. It was strange, Levi. Like they recognized us both, but differently. And then that guardian appeared. Fascinating. Ancient celestial technology responding to modern key magic and whatever his non-dragon magic is. Levi scribbled notes enthusiastically. We should check the guild archives for any references to spiral patterns in celestial contexts. Urza settled beside them, having exchanged her battle armor for more casual attire. Before you dive into research, perhaps consider the more immediate concern of the council hearing. Naruto will need preparation for their questioning techniques. Lucy frowned. Questioning techniques? I thought this was just a formal inquiry. The Magic Council rarely conducts just anything, Urza replied grimly. Especially regarding matters connected to Acnologia. They'll likely use truth-compelling magic, memory extraction devices, perhaps even thought projection lacrima. Can they do that without consent? Lucy demanded, indignation rising. Urza's expression remained serious. Technically, no. Practically, the council operates with broad latitude when draconic threats are concerned. We should prepare him for worst-case scenarios. Levi closed her notebook with a decisive snap. All research relevant council procedures. There must be precedents we can cite for limiting invasive magical examinations. As the women discussed strategy, across the guild hall, Gil Red Fox watched the proceedings with studied indifference that belied his actual interest. The Iron Dragon Slayer had remained deliberately silent during the confrontation, observing the newcomer with practiced assessment. What do you think, Lily? He asked his Exceed partner quietly. Panther Lily crossed his arms, expression thoughtful. His magic is genuinely Acnologia's, but his control is remarkable. And that's secondary magic. I've never felt anything like it. Me neither, Gajil admitted. It's not Dragon Slayer magic at all. Feels more like life force, somehow. But weaponized. Will you assist in the council preparations? Lily inquired. Gajil shrugged noncommittally. Maybe. Depends if he's worth the trouble. Despite his casual tone, both knew he'd already decided to help, if only to satisfy his curiosity about this unusual dragon slayer. The guild infirmary was a peaceful contrast to the main hall's energetic atmosphere. Afternoon sunlight filtered through curtained windows, illuminating several neatly made beds and cabinets stocked with medical supplies. Wendy directed Naruto to sit on one of the beds while she gathered her thoughts. Despite her young age, her movements displayed the confidence of someone well-versed in healing arts. I've never examined magic like yours before, she admitted, arranging several monitoring lacrima nearby. But gee, Randini taught me to sense magical pathways regardless of magic type. Naruto settled where indicated, his posture relaxed but attentive. I appreciate your willingness to try, especially given my connection to Acnologia. Wendy's hands trembled slightly at the name, but her voice remained steady. The dragon who raised you isn't the same as you. I understand that better than most. She activated a diagnostic lacrima, which projected a three-dimensional representation of Ethernano currents above Naruto's body. Could you channel a small amount of your Dragon Slayer magic first? Just enough to track the flow patterns. Naruto complied, allowing chaos magic to flow through his system in carefully controlled amounts. The projection displayed dark purple and black energy moving through clearly defined pathways, similar to standard Dragon Slayer patterns but with notable differences. Your control is amazing, Wendy observed professionally. Most Dragon Slayers I've examined have turbulent flow even at rest. Yours moves almost deliberately. Necessity, Naruto explained simply. Chaos Dragon magic naturally wants to destroy. Learning control wasn't optional. Wendy nodded understanding. Now the other energy. The golden one that isn't quite magic. Naruto shifted focus, drawing on his natural energy manipulation. Golden light illuminated the diagnostic projection, revealing a completely different circulatory system overlapping with his Ethernano pathways. Wendy's eyes widened. It's like you have two separate magical systems. The Ethernano channels are where they should be for a Dragon Slayer. But this other energy, She pointed to spiral-shaped nodes at various points in the projection. These collection points aren't standard magical containers. They're more like transformation nodes. What does that mean? Naruto asked, genuinely curious about her analysis. Regular magic draws ether nano from the environment, channels it through the mage's body, and shapes it according to their magical discipline, Wendy explained, shifting into a teacher-like tone that suggested she was repeating Grandini's lessons. But this energy seems to be generated within your body, collected at these spiral points, then transformed into usable power. She adjusted the diagnostic lacrima for a closer examination. The strangest part is how the two systems interact. They're completely separate, yet they recognize each other. See how they never interfere, always yielding priority when needed. Naruto studied the projection with newfound appreciation for Wendy's analytical abilities. That matches my experience using them. They don't combine naturally, but they don't conflict either. Have you tried deliberately combining them? Wendy asked. Only partially. The results can be unpredictable. Wendy's expression grew more confident as she continued her examination. The spiral markings on your face, they're not just birthmarks. They're external manifestations of major nodes. She pointed to corresponding points in the projection, like visible anchors for your internal energy system. The door opened quietly as Mirajan entered with a tray of tea and snacks. How's the examination going? She asked, setting the refreshments on a nearby table. It's fascinating, Wendy exclaimed, her earlier fear seemingly forgotten in the excitement of discovery. Naruto has two completely different magical systems. One is definitely Dragon Slayer magic, but the other isn't magic at all, at least not Ethernano-based magic. Mirajan poured tea for both of them. If not Ethernano-based, then what? I'm not sure yet, Wendy admitted. But it reminds me of something Grandini once mentioned, about worlds beyond Earthland where energy manifests differently. The casual observation struck Naruto with unexpected force. Worlds beyond Earthland. The concept aligned perfectly with his fragmented understanding of his origins, the persistent feeling of connection to something beyond this world. Did Grandini say anything specific about these other worlds? He asked carefully. Wendy's brow furrowed in concentration. Not much. Just that Dragons once had knowledge of pathways between realms, but that most were sealed long ago for safety. She looked up suddenly. Wait, do you think you might be from another world? It would explain many things, Naruto acknowledged. The non-Ethernano energy, the spiral connections. Acnologia finding me as an infant rather than raising me from birth. Mirajan considered this possibility with remarkable calmness. If true, it raises as many questions as it answers. How did you cross between worlds as an infant? Why would Acnologia, of all beings, choose to raise a child from another realm? And or others from your world looking for you? Wendy added softly. The question hung in the air, giving voice to concerns Naruto had carried unconsciously for years. The raids that followed him, the mysterious broker with red eyes, the message about spirals connecting worlds, all suggested someone was indeed searching. Whether friend or enemy remained unknown. A knock at the infirmary door interrupted their contemplation. Lucy poked her head in, expression apologetic for the interruption. Sorry to disturb your examination, but Urza wants to start preparing for the council hearing. Her eyes met Naruto's. Apparently, it might be more intensive than a simple conversation. Naruto nodded, not surprised by this development. I expected as much. Council fears regarding Acnologia wouldn't be satisfied with words alone. He turned to Wendy with genuine gratitude. Thank you for your insights. You've given me more to consider than I've gained in years of searching. The young Dragon Slayer smiled shyly. I'm glad I could help. Maybe we could continue later. There's so much more to understand about your energy systems. I'd like that, Naruto agreed, sensing a potential friendship forming despite their complicated draconic connections. As they rejoined the others in the main hall, Naruto found himself in an unexpected position, surrounded by people actively working to help him rather than fear or use him. Urza had assembled reference materials on council procedures. Levi was researching legal precedents. Even Natsu, despite his initial hostility, offered insights about Slayer questioning techniques he'd experienced during previous council encounters. They'll try to trigger your dragon force, the Fire Dragon Slayer warned. Push you until your control slips. Don't let them. Gajeel added gruffly. And don't volunteer information. Answer exactly what they ask, nothing more. The collaborative effort to prepare him for the hearing was unlike anything Naruto had experienced since Acnologia's disappearance. For 7 years, he had navigated threats alone, relying solely on his own judgment and abilities. As evening approached, Makarov addressed the practical matter of accommodations. You'll need lodging until the hearing. Fairy Hills is for female members only, and our male dormitory is currently under renovation after Natsu's last cooking experiment. The Fire Dragon Slayer had the grace to look embarrassed as several guild members groaned at the memory. He can stay with me, Lucy offered without hesitation. My apartment has a couch, and it's close to the guild. Mirajan's eyes twinkled with mischief. How generous of you, Lucy. Lucy blushed slightly at the implied teasing but stood by her offer. It's just practical. We've already been traveling together. And this way we can continue researching the celestial connection to his abilities. A sound arrangement, Makarov agreed, either missing or deliberately ignoring the wrong antic implications that had several guild members exchanging knowing looks. Now, I suggest everyone rest. Tomorrow we continue preparations, and the day after, we face the council. As guild members began departing for the evening, Naruto found himself walking alongside Lucy toward her apartment. The events of the day, from their arrival at Fairy Tail to the Hunter confrontation to Wendy's Ravella. Tions about his dual energy systems had given him much to process. Thank you, he said simply as they navigated Magnolia's evening streets. Lucy glanced at him curiously. For offering my couch, it's really no problem. For everything, Naruto clarified, bringing me to Fairy Tail, standing beside me when the hunters came, negotiating with the council representative. Most people run from complications. You seem to run toward them. Quote, Lucy laughed softly. That's the Fairy Tail influence already working on me. I've only been a member a short while, but their approach to life is contagious. She looked at him thoughtfully. Besides, I meant what I said about our magic connecting at those ruins. I think we were supposed to meet. Supposed to? Naruto questioned, raising an eyebrow. Call it celestial intuition, she replied with a smile. Celestial magic is all about connections. Stars to planets, mages to spirits, patterns that only make sense when viewed from the right perspective. Her expression grew more serious. When I saw those spirals responding to both of us, it felt significant. Like puzzle pieces fitting together. Her perspective resonated with Naruto's own sense. That their meeting wasn't mere coincidence. Throughout his life, he had trusted instincts that went beyond logical explanation, instincts connected to his mysterious origins and non-ethernano abilities. They arrived at Lucy's apartment, a cozy second-floor unit overlooking a canal. As she unlocked the door, a thought occurred to Naruto. The council hearing will put you and Fairy Tail at risk, he said. You've known me for days. The guild has known me for hours. Yet you're all willing to challenge the Magic Council on my behalf. Lucy pushed the door open, turning to face him with unexpected seriousness. That's what family does, and Fairy Tail considers its members family from day one. I'm not a member, Naruto pointed out. Lucy's smile returned, knowing and slightly mischievous. Not officially, not yet, but I saw how you watched everyone today, like you were seeing something you've been looking for without realizing it. Her perception was uncomfortably accurate. Throughout his years of solitary wandering, Naruto had maintained distance from others partly out of concern for their safety, but also from uncertainty about where he truly belonged. Fairy Tail's immediate, if cautious, acceptance had affected him more deeply than he wanted to admit. Besides, Lucy continued, leading him into her apartment, you said you want to understand who you are beyond being Acnologia's son. Sometimes we discover ourselves through others' eyes, through belonging somewhere. As she showed him around her modest but comfortable home, pointing out the bathroom, kitchen, and the couch that would be his bed. Naruto considered her words. Belonging somewhere. The concept was both appealing and frightening to someone who had defined himself by movement, by the constant search for answers. Later, as moonlight filtered through curtained windows and Lucy's steady breathing indicated she had fallen asleep in her bedroom, Naruto stood at the apartment window, gazing toward the guild hall visible in the distance. Its distinctive silhouette against the night sky represented something he hadn't expected to find in Magnolia: possibility. Not just the possibility of answers about his origins, though Wendy's insights had opened promising avenues of investigation, but the possibility of connections beyond his link to Acnologia. The possibility of people who saw him as more than the son of destruction. The Chaos Dragon Slayer magic within him stirred at these thoughts, as if responding to emotional shifts he rarely permitted himself to acknowledge. Naruto quieted it with practiced control, but allowed himself to consider what tomorrow might bring beyond council preparations. What might it mean to stop running? To belong somewhere, even temporarily? As sleep finally claimed him, spiral patterns danced through his dreams, connecting worlds, connecting people, connecting past to future in ways he was only beginning to understand. Chapter 2 End Chapter 3, Sky Meets Chaos. Dawn painted Magnolia's eastern hills in soft gold, bathing the landscape in gentle light that belied yesterday's tensions. Dew-laden grass whispered beneath Wendy Marvell's feet as the young sky drive. Agon Slayer ascended a secluded clearing overlooking the awakening town. Carla followed close behind, the white Exceed's watchful gaze scanning their surroundings with maternal concern. "I still think this is unwise," Carla muttered, wings materializing briefly as she navigated a particularly steep section. "Training alone with him before we truly understand his intentions." "We won't be alone," Wendy reminded her companion gently. "You're here, and Urza said she'd join us later." The Exceed's tail twitched with unconcealed apprehension. "Small comfort if his control slips. Acnologia's power is not the same as Naruto," Wendy interrupted with uncharacteristic firmness. "You saw how precisely he contained his magic yesterday, even when Natsu attacked him." Her voice softened as she added, "Besides, I need to understand his non-dragon energy better. It might help with my healing techniques." Carla's skeptical expression remained, but she offered no further protest as they crested the hill. The clearing spread before them, a natural plateau bordered by ancient oaks whose massive branches created a protective canopy around the open space. Standing motionless at its center, eyes closed in perfect meditation, was Naruto. Golden energy spiraled visibly around his form, not the chaotic darkness of his Dragon Slayer magic but the mysterious force Wendy had identified yesterday as something entirely separate. The spiral birthmarks on his cheeks seemed more pronounced in this state, pulsing faintly with the same golden light. Neither Wendy nor Carla announced their presence, both instinctively reluctant to disturb whatever discipline he practiced. After several moments, Naruto spoke without opening his eyes. "Your footsteps are lighter than most," he observed, voice carrying easily across the clearing. "But the wind shifts around your presence." His eyes opened, finding them immediately despite their position in the shadows of the tree line. "Good morning, Wendy." Carla. The simple acknowledgement of both their presences, treating Exceed and human with equal respect, earned a fraction of approval in Carla's otherwise suspicious assessment. "You're earlier than I expected," Naruto continued, the golden energy receding into his body with controlled precision. Wendy stepped forward, a small medical pack slung over one shoulder. "I couldn't sleep much. Too many questions about your energy systems." A slight smile touched Naruto's lips. Curious minds seldom rest easily. He gestured toward the clearing's center. "I've been gathering natural energy since sunrise. The concentration here is remarkable, different from other locations I've found." Wendy's interest visibly sparked. "Natural energy, that's what you call the non-ethernano power." "It's what Acnologia called it," Naruto clarified. Though his understanding seemed limited, he considered it an unusual quirk of my biology rather than a true magical system. The casual reference to the black K-dragon sent a reflexive shiver through Wendy's small frame. 7 years had passed since Grandini's warnings about Acnologia, yet the fear remained embedded in her Dragon Slayer instincts, a primal recognition of apex predator that transcended rational thought. Naruto noticed her reaction and deliberately seated himself cross-legged on the grass, reducing his imposing height to a less threatening position. The considerate gesture wasn't lost on Carla, whose rigid posture eased marginally. "You wanted to continue examining my dual energy systems?" Naruto prompted gently. Wendy nodded. I-Cal confidence gradually replacing draconic apprehension. She settled across from him, arranging a portable diagnostic lacrima between them. "Yesterday's initial scan showed the basics, but I'd like To observe how the two systems interact during actual use, she explained, professional demeanor strengthening her voice. Especially how natural energy flows through those spiral nodes. Carla Posey. Cheoned herself protectively beside Wendy but maintained a respectful silence as the young healer activated her equipment. A three-dimensional projection appeared above the lacrima, displaying Naruto's internal energy pathways with surprising clarity for such compact equipment. Guild-enhanced diagnostic tool, Naruto guessed, impressed by its precision. Perliusica enhanced, Wendy corrected with a hint of pride. She's our guild's healing specialist. She modified this for Dragon Slayer physiology specifically. The projection displayed Naruto's Ethernano channels in purple-black while his natural energy system appeared as golden pathways, two complete networks occupying the same physical space yet remaining distinctly separate. Could you channel a small amount of Dragon Slayer magic first? Wendy requested, adjusting the lacrima's sensitivity, just enough to track the flow patterns. Naruto complied, allowing Chaos Dragon energy to circulate in carefully controlled amounts. The projection's purple-black pathways illuminated, showing energy moving with deliberate precision rather than the turbulent flow typical of Dragon Slayer magic. Wendy leaned closer, fascination overcoming lingering fear. Amazing. Your control is beyond anything I've seen in other Dragon Slayers. Even when active, your chaos energy maintains perfect containment. Necessity, Naruto explained simply. Chaos Dragon magic naturally seeks destruction. Learning control wasn't optional if I wanted to interact with the world without damaging it. The implication, that Acnologia had either never learned or never desired such control, hung unspoken between them. Now the natural energy, Wendy requested. Naruto shifted focus, golden pathways illuminating as the purple-black channels receded to background levels. The movement between systems was seamless, like a dancer transitioning between complex forms without breaking rhythm. The transition is so fluid, Wendy observed with professional appreciation. Most mages struggle when switching between even similar magical disciplines. They don't feel like separate powers to me, Naruto admitted. More like different aspects of the same self. Wendy adjusted the diagnostic settings, zooming in on one of the spiral nodes near his abdomen. This central node seems to be the primary connection point. It's larger than the others and processes more energy flow. Her finger traced the spiral pattern in the projection. Almost like a seal containing something powerful. Naruto's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of recognition quickly concealed. What makes you describe it as a seal? Just an impression, Wendy replied, too focused on the diagnostic to notice his reaction. The energy patterns remind me of containment form. Asians have seen in ancient healing texts. Carla, however, missed nothing. The Exceed's perceptive eyes narrowed at Naruto's momentary change of expression. Can you show me how you combine the two energy types? Wendy continued. Yesterday you mentioned trying it with unpredictable results. Naruto hesitated. It's not something I do casually. The interaction can be volatile. Just a small demonstration. Wendy pressed, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding caution. The diagnostic would provide valuable data on cross-system energy dynamics. After considering her request, Naruto nodded. A minimal combination then. Observe carefully. It happens quickly. He closed his eyes briefly, centering himself. When they reopened, Naruto raised his right hand, palm upward. Chaos draw. Gone energy swirled above his palm in a controlled sphere of dark purple-black. With his left hand, he gathered natural energy into a golden spiraling orb. Then, with deliberate precision, he brought his hands together. The energies resisted initially, repelling like opposing magnets. Through careful manipulation, Naruto forced a partial merger along their boundaries. The diagnostic projection X plotted with activity as the two energy systems briefly connected. Where they touched, new patterns formed, neither purple-black nor golden but a harmonized state that resembled nothing Wendy had encountered before. Incredible, she whispered, transfixed by the display. They're creating a third energy type at the intersection points. The merged energy pulsed with growing intensity. Before it could destabilize, Naruto separated his hands, dissolving both original energy forms and ending the demonstration. That's as far as I can safely take it without specific purpose, he explained, the SP. Iral markings on his cheeks gradually fading from their brightened state. Full combination requires intense focus and carries significant risk. The diagnostic lacrima continued processing the recorded data, presenting multidimensional analyses of the energy interaction. Wendy studied the results with growing excitement. This could revolutionize our understanding of magical theory, she breathed, scholarly enthusiasm temporarily eclipsing her age. Two fundamentally different energy systems creating a harmonized third state. Harmonized isn't quite how I'd describe it, Naruto corrected gently. More like, forcibly synchronized. The natural state of these energies is separate coexistence. Wendy's excitement dimmed slightly at his caution. Have you ever achieved full combination? Twice, Naruto acknowledged. Both during life-threatening situations when no other option remained. The results were effective but difficult to control. Before Wendy could inquire further, a new voice joined their conversation. Restraint is an admirable quality in those who possess great power. Urza Scarlet emerged from the tree line, her crimson hair catching the morning light. Rather than her usual armor, she wore simple training attire, a clear indication of her purpose on the hilltop. Good morning, Urza, Wendy greeted with a respectful bow of her head. The S-class Mage R. Turned the gesture before addressing Naruto. I see you've already begun your examination. Have you made progress? Significant, Wendy confirmed enthusiastically. Naruto's dual energy systems operate independently yet can temporarily combine under specific conditions. Urza approached their position, studying the diagnostic projection with analytical precision. Fascinating, and potentially useful for the council hearing tomorrow. She turned her direct gaze toward Naruto. They will test the limits of your control. Being able to demonstrate this level of energy management could prove favorable to our case. You speak from experience, Naruto observed. Unfortunately, yes. The council's methods for assessing powerful mages can be invasive. Urza's expression hardened momentarily at some remembered encounter. Particularly for those with abilities they don't fully understand. She gestured toward the open clearing. Which is why I suggested this training session. If you're amenable, I'd like to test your combat reflexes under pressure. See how your control holds when pushed. Naruto rose fluidly to his feet, his posture neither aggressive nor defensive, simply prepared. You want to fight me. I want to challenge you, Urza clarified. There's a difference. My goal isn't victory but assessment. Wendy quickly gathered her diagnostic equipment, recognizing the shift in purpose. Should we move further back, Urza? That would be wise, the Requip mage confirmed. While I don't anticipate full-scale combat, precautions are appropriate. Carla huffed softly. Quote, I knew this peaceful examination wouldn't last. She tugged at Wendy's sleeve. Come, child, let them have their testosterone-fueled display while we observe from safety. Despite her companion's sarcasm, Wendy followed the suggestion, retreating to the clearing's edge with diagnostic lacrima still actively recording. Scientific interest had overcome her initial fear, replaced by genuine curiosity about Naruto's capabilities. Once they had sufficient distance, Urza faced Naruto across the open space. I should explain my approach. The council will attempt to provoke emotional responses to test stability under pressure. Their methods typically involve magical stimuli designed to trigger instinctive reactions. So you'll be trying to make me lose control, Naruto summarized. Precisely. Urza's body glowed with golden light as her Requip magic activated. When the light faded, she stood armored in her Heaven's Wheel configuration, multiple swords hovering in deadly formation around her. Let's begin with reflexive defense assessment. Without further warning, 3 swords launched toward Naruto at blinding speed. Rather than dodging, he remained perfectly still until the last possible moment. Then, with fluid economy of movement, he shifted his upper body just enough for the blades to pass harmlessly by, missing by millimeters yet never touching him. Impressive spatial awareness, Urza noted, already directing additional blades into complex attack patterns. But passive evasion won't satisfy the council's curiosity about active control. This time, a dozen swords ached from multiple angles simultaneously, making pure evasion impossible. Naruto's response changed accordingly. His right hand extended, Chaos Dragon energy materializing as a controlled field rather than destructive force. Chaos Dragon's selective field, he stated calmly. The approaching swords encountered invisible resistance, their trajectories bending around Naruto's body before continuing. ing their flight path and embedding in the ground behind him. Not one blade had been destroyed or damaged, merely redirected with surgical precision. From her observation point, Wendy gasped softly. He didn't stop the attack or destroy the weapons, he just altered their path through space. Certainly efficient, Carla admitted grudgingly. Though one wonders why Acnologia's son would develop such non-destructive techniques when his father specializes in annihilation. Urza seemed equally impressed, though her expression revealed nothing as she re-equipped into her Flame Empress armor. Let's increase difficulty. Magical attacks require different defense parameters than physical objects. Fire erupted from her sword, condensing into precision streams that surrounded Naruto from multiple directions. The heat was intense enough to scorch the ground yet carefully calibrated to test without causing serious injury. Naruto's response revealed new dimensions of his control. Rather than creating a complete barrier, he allowed portions of the flames to reach him, then absorbed their energy directly into his chaos magic system. Dragon slayers can consume their own element, he explained as the flames dissipated. Chaos dragon magic can absorb and redistribute almost any energy form, though not without limitations. Urza nodded acknowledgement, re-equipping again into her Lightning Empress armor. And your reflexive response to unexpected stimuli. Without waiting for his preparation, she unleashed a massive lightning bolt directly at his position. The attack came with no warning, no verbal cue, pure reflex testing. Naruto's natural energy surged instantly, golden light forming a spiral barrier that absorbed the lightning strike completely. Unlike his chaos magic absorption, his defense converted the electrical energy into natural energy that temporarily enhanced his system rather than requiring redistribution. Automatic defense, Wendy noted with fascination. His raw energy responds protectively even before conscious direction. Urza paused her assault, studying Naruto with growing respect. Your control is exceptional under isolated testing. Now let's examine emotional triggers. She re-equipped into standard armor, sword vanishing as she approached him directly. The council will likely use psychological pressure rather than just magical challenges. They may reference Acnologia's destruction, imply your inherited predisposition toward the same, or suggest your control is merely temporary restraint of inevitable nature. Naruto's expression remained calm. Familiar territory. I've heard variations since childhood. From others, perhaps, Urza acknowledged. But have you confronted it within yourself? The council will probe for internal doubts, he moments when you've questioned whether control is merely delaying inevitable inheritance. Something shifted in Naruto's eyes, a flicker of recognition that suggested Urza had indeed touched on a private concern. The scarlet-haired mage pressed her advantage, circling him with calculated assessment. They'll ask about incidents where control slipped. Times when chaos overwhelmed discipline. Uri Dragon Slayer has experienced such moments, the dragon force taking over, instincts surpassing rationality. Naruto's posture remained controlled, but Wendy's diagnostic lacrima detected subtle changes in his energy flow. The chaos magic pulsed with slightly increased intensity while natural energy patterns adjusted to compensate, an internal balancing act made visible through magical monitoring. Everyone has limits, Urza continued relentlessly, even you. The council will want to know yours. What happens when Naruto's control breaks? When Acnologia's son fulfills his inheritance? When chaos consumes? Enough. The single word carried no magical enhancement yet commanded immediate attention. Naruto hadn't raised his voice or shifted his stance, yet something fundamental had changed in his presence. Both energy systems had aligned, not combining but synchronizing purpose. You've made your point, Urza Scarlet, he stated evenly. Yes, I've questioned my nature. Yes, I've faced moments where control wavered. And yes, the consequences were significant. He held out his hand, palm upward. A perfect sphere of chaos energy materialized, darker and more concentrated than his previous demonstrations. But control isn't temporary restraint. It's fundamental choice. Every moment, every day, the chaos sphere compressed further, its destructive potential visibly increasing yet remaining perfectly contained. I could level this clearing with minimal effort. Destroy Magnolia with moderate exertion. Perhaps devastate Fury with maximum output. The matter-of-fact assessment chilled the observers. Not because it seemed boastful but because it was delivered with such calm certainty. Instead, Naruto continued, I choose this. The chaos sphere began transforming, its destructive essence channeled into increasingly complex patterns that resembled delicate crystalline structures, beauty crafted from potential annihilation. Eventually, the entire formation dissolved into harmless particles that scattered in the morning breeze. Remarkable, Urza murmured, genuine admiration replacing her testing persona. Not suppression of power but complete transmutation of purpose. Wendy's diagnostic continued recording, capturing data that defied conventional magical theory. He's not just controlling the magic, he's redefining its fundamental properties. Naruto turned toward the younger Dragon Slayer, his expression softening, something all Dragon Slayers can learn, though each element presents different challenges. Chaos is particularly resistant to redirection. But sky magic, he gestured toward Wendy, naturally supports healing and restoration. Your control challenges would differ from mine. The observation, casually offered yet insightful, sparked Wendy's professional interest. You've studied other Dragon Slayer disciplines. Observed, when possible, Naruto confirmed. From safe distance, usually. Most Dragon Slayers react defensively when sensing Acnologia's magic signature. The understatement drew a surprised laugh from Urza. That's certainly one way to describe Natsu's reaction yesterday. Carla, who had maintained skeptical silence throughout the demonstration, finally spoke. If your control is so absolute, why did the council hunters bring specialized containment equipment? They seemed quite confident in their ability to neutralize you. A fair question, Naruto acknowledged. Conventional suppression technology targets ethernano-based magic, disrupting a mage's connection to environmental energy sources. It would affect my Dragon Slayer abilities. But not your natural energy system, Wendy realized, connecting pieces from her examination. Since that energy generates internally rather than drawing from external ethernano. Precisely. A significant advantage in certain situations, though not one I advertise. He glanced meaningfully at the diagnostic lacrima still recording their conversation. The CIL doesn't need complete information about my capabilities. Urza nodded understanding. I'll ensure that distinction remains between what we know and what we share tomorrow. She returned to her street. Andard armor with a flash of requip magic. Your demonstration exceeds my expectations. The council will find little justification for containment based on control assessment. As she spoke, Wendy's attention shifted suddenly to the forest edge behind Naruto. Someone's watching us. The young Dragon Slayer's enhanced senses had detected movement among the distant trees, too deliberate to be forest animals. Too cautious to be guild members. Naruto turned slightly, extending his awareness beyond visual range. 3 observers, he confirmed quietly. 200 meters east, using magical concealment. Urza's hand moved to her sword hilt. Council scouts preparing for tomorrow. No, Naruto replied, his expression darkening. Different magical signature, similar to the Dark Guild raiders from Shiratsum. Understanding passed between the 3 mages. Dark Guild interest in Naruto's abilities suggested continued coordination beyond random encounters, someone systematically tracking and assessing him through disposable agents. Should we confront them? Wendy asked, surprising both older mages with her readiness. Naruto considered the question before shaking his head. Let them watch for now. Confrontation would reveal our awareness of their surveillance, and potentially drive away the actual mastermind behind these coordinated observations, Urza agreed, strategic mind aligning with his assessment. Better to know we're being watched than force them to develop more covert methods. The training session shifted focus after this discovery, though none of them acknowledged the change verbally. Urza directed them through less revealing exercises, standard combat formations and techniques rather than unique magical demonstrations. The observers remained in position, evidently believing their concealment magic sufficient. After an hour of this modified training, Urza departed for the guild hall, citing preparation requirements for tomorrow's council hearing. Her departure was precisely casual, unhurried yet purposeful enough to appear natural to watching eyes. Naruto and Wendy continued their session, transitioning to seated meditation that appeared education. Yet revealed little of actual value to observers. Throughout this performance, Wendy's diagnostic lacrima continued gathering data on Naruto's energy systems, its true purpose masked by their apparent meditation practice. They're still watching, Wendy murmured during a seemingly instructional conversation about breath control. Naruto nodded almost imperceptibly. Patient observers. Professional rather than zealous. Hired assessment rather than fanatics. That's almost more concerning, Carla commented quietly. Fanatics are dangerous but predictable. Professionals suggest organized interest with substantial resources. The observation was astute. Naruto had encountered both types throughout his travels. Dark Guild fanatics seeking Acnologia's power through his son, and calculated O.B. servers maintaining distance while gathering intelligence. The latter always proved more troublesome long-term. Wendy, Naruto spoke at normal volume, maintaining their cover conversation. You mentioned your dragon, Grandini. What was she like? The question served dual purposes, continuing their apparent mentor-student discussion while potentially revealing genuine information of interest to them both. Wendy recognized the strategy and responded thoughtfully. Grandini was beautiful, she began, sincere emotion entering her voice despite the performance aspect. White scales that captured sunlight like fresh snow. She could heal injuries thought permanent and taught me that sky magic exists to support life rather than simply demonstrate power. As Wendy described her foster mother, authentic memories colored her expression. She was stern but kind, demanding precision in healing techniques because mistakes could harm rather than help. She taught me responsibility before power. Naruto listened with genuine interest, finding parallels and contrasts to his own dragon parent. She sounds very different from Acnologia. Were there any kind moments? Wendy asked hesitantly, curiosity overcoming performance considerations. With him, the question caught Naruto slightly off guard. Not because it was inappropriate, but because few had ever considered Acnologia capable of kindness in any form. He considered his response carefully, aware of their hidden audience yet unwilling to fabricate his history. Not kind in ways others would recognize, he answered truthfully. Acnologia doesn't value gentleness or comfort. But there were moments of connection. Wendy leaned forward slightly, professional curiosity mingling with personal interest. What kind of connection? When I was very young, perhaps 4 or 5, I fell from a mountain ledge while trying to follow him into flight. The memory emerged with surprising clarity. I should have died from the fall. Instead, he caught me midair, his claws forming a cage around my body that prevented impact without crushing me. The precision required for a dragon his size to manage such a rescue. Naruto paused, realizing he'd never fully analyzed that incident before. He could have let me fall. Raising a human child was never his priority. Yet his reaction was instantaneous, protective despite his general indifference to life. That suggests something deeper than just interest in your potential, Wendy observed quietly. Perhaps, Naruto acknowledged, though his teachings remained harsh. Control T. Hero consequence rather than encouragement. Power through necessity rather than nurturing. The contrast with Grandini's approach hung unspoken between them. Where the Sky Dragon had taught healing and support, Acnologia had enforced survival and dominance. Different paths that produced dramatically different dragon slayers. Did he tell you why he chose to raise you? Wendy asked. The quest. Ion representing both genuine curiosity and information potentially valuable to their hidden observers. He said I called to him, Naruto replied, the phrase still cryptic years later. That my RGY signature was familiar yet foreign, something he hadn't encountered in centuries. Another memory surfaced. Once, when particularly philosophical, he mentioned my spiral birthmarks reminded him of pathways between realms that should remain closed. Wendy's eyes widened slightly. Between realms, like celestial gates, possibly. He never elaborated, and questioning Acnologia typically resulted in destructive demonstrations of why humans should accept their ignorance. Naruto's tone carried dry understatement that drew a surprised smile from Wendy. Their conversation continued along these lines, sharing dragon parent experiences that revealed much about their respective upbringings while potentially feeding misleading or incomplete information to their observers. Throughout the exchange, Wendy's diagnostic continued gathering valuable data on Naruto's energy fluctuations during emotional recollection. Eventually, the sun climbed to midday position, and Naruto detected a subtle shift among their hidden audience. They're preparing to leave, he murmured during a pause in conversation. Wendy nodded slightly, her enhanced senses confirming his assessment. all three moving in coordinated withdrawal. Professional indeed, Carla noted with grudging respect. Maintained position for hours without detection by ordinary means, then synchronized departure without obvious signals. Once certain their observers had truly departed, Wendy deactivated her diagnostic lacrima and stretched her limbs after the prolonged seated position. That was intense. I've never had to maintain a performance while conducting actual research before. You managed admirably, Naruto complimented. Especially balancing genuine questions with strategic information control. The young dragon slayer beamed at the praise. The data we gathered is incredible. Your energy systems respond differently depending on emotional context. The chaos magic intensifies during defensive recollections, while natural energy predominates during analytical thought. Her enthusiasm for the scientific aspects was refreshing, focusing on magical theory rather than the darker implications of being systematically observed. Naruto appreciated this perspective shift, having spent years dwelling on threats rather than knowledge advancement. Shall we return to the guild? Carla suggested pragmatically. Quote, the others will want to review our findings before tomorrow's hearing. As they gathered their equipment, Wendy hesitated momentarily before asking, would you be willing to help me with my Dragon Slayer techniques sometime? The way you control and redirect energy, I think it could help my healing abilities. The request represented significant trust development since their first meeting. Naruto inclined his head with genuine appreciation for the milestone. I'd be honored. Your sky magic has healing applications my chaos energy can't achieve. We could learn much from each other. Wendy's smile brightened the clearing more effectively than the midday sun. Great. Maybe after the council hearing, once things settle down. Assuming the council doesn't imprison me indefinitely. Naruto replied with dry humor that drew an indignant huff from Carla. Fairy Tail wouldn't allow that, the Exceed stated with surprising conviction given her earlier suspicion. They're irritati, ngly stubborn about protecting their own, even temporary associates. The confidence in Fairy Tail's loyalty struck Naruto deeply, contrasting sharply with his years of solitary wandering. The guild's immediate, if initially cautious, acceptance continued surprising him despite their demonstrated commitment during the hunter confrontation. As they descended the hillside toward Magnolia, Naruto say, NSED another presence, distinctly different from their Dark Guild observers. This energy signature felt oddly familiar, despite being certain he'd never encountered it before. It resonated with High's natural energy system in ways that suggested shared origin. He paused momentarily, extending his senses toward a distant ridge where the presence had manifested briefly before disappearing. Something about the fleeting connection triggered recognition beyond conscious memory, like encountering an echo of something known before birth. Is something wrong? Wendy asked, noticing his hesitation. Naruto resumed walking, filing the strange sensation for later consideration. Just appreciating the view, he replied, not wishing to introduce new complications before tomorrow's challenges. Magnolia looks peaceful from this perspective. Quote, Jiraiya withdrew his presence completely once he realized the young man had sensed him despite significant distance and concealment techniques. Impressive awareness, far beyond what should be possible without sage training. Yet another confirmation of his suspicions. The white-haired sage settled into a meditation position on his distant ridge, processing what he had witnessed during the morning training session. 17 years of interdimensional searching had finally yielded results, though not precisely as expected. Minato's son, raised by this world's version of the Nine Tails. He murmured to himself, the universe has a twisted sense of humor. The parallel was both fascinating and concerning. In their world, Naruto had contained Nine-Tailed Fox, a relationship of reluctant symbiosis that eventually developed into partnership. Here, he had been raised by Acnologia, this dimension's equivalent catastrophic power, effectively inverting the relationship dynamic. Yet the boy's chakra system remained intact despite the dimensional transition. More surprisingly, he had developed methods of using both chakra and this world's nano-based magic simultaneously, an achievement thought theoretically impossible by interdimensional research standards. Kushina's spiral seals creating cross-dimensional stability, Jiraiya theorized, recalling the distinctive markings on the young man's cheeks. Her clan's techniques were always more instinctive than documented. Most encouraging was the control Naruto demonstrated, not just over his Dragon Slayer magic but the balanced integration of both energy systems. Whatever Acnologia's flaws is apparent, the dragon had apparently enforced discipline that prevented the catastrophic outcomes Jiraiya had feared when detecting the dimensional breach 17 years ago. Now came the complicated part, making contact without creating interdimensional instability. The recent celestial disturbance had weakened barriers temporarily, allowing Jiraiya's presence in this world. But approaching directly risked accelerating deterioration between dimensional boundaries. Patience, the sage counseled himself. He's found stability in potential allies. The council hearing tomorrow will reveal how this world's authorities respond to his unique status. Jiraiya produced a small scroll, adding observations to his interdimensional correspondence, notes that would transmit back to his original dimension through techniques developed specifically for this mission. Tsunade would need calm, comprehensive updates given the unexpected developments. One fact remained certain. Minato and Kushina's son lived, had grown strong, and maintained his essential character despite extraordinarily different circumstances. That alone justified 17 years of searching. The sage sealed his notes with a specialized jutsu before vanishing in a swirl of leaves, his presence returning to the Dimensio Null threshold where he could observe without further risk of detection. Tomorrow's council hearing would prove illuminating on multiple fronts. Lucy Heartfilia hunched over ancient tomes spread across her apartment floor. Celestial glasses perched on her nose as she scanned texts for spiral references. Levi McGarden sat opposite, surrounded by her own research materials borrowed from fairy tales archives. Anything? Lucy asked hopefully, rubbing tired eyes beneath the magical reading glasses. Levi sighed, setting aside another dusty volume. Nothing specific to spiral gateways between dimensions. Plenty about celestial gates to the spirit world, but that's standard knowledge. There has to be something, Lucy insisted, determination overriding fatigue. Those ruins responded to both our magics for a reason. I don't disagree, Levi replied thoughtfully. But maybe we're approaching this wrong. Instead of looking for direct references to spiral gates, what about historical accounts of objects or people appearing mysteriously? Things that might have crossed dimensions without being recognized as such. The suggestion shifted their research direction. Lucy retrieved A.H. Historical chronicle documenting unusual magical phenomena across Fiore's history. Like the anima incidents in Edalus Crossings. Exactly. Levi's scholarly enthusiasm returned. Documented Dimensio Null transitions that weren't recognized until much later. As they pursued this new approach, a knock at Lucy's door interrupted their focus. Lucy opened it to find Mirajan balancing a large food basket. Thought you researchers could use nourishment, the white-haired mage explained with her characteristic smile. Brain work requires proper fuel. Lucy welcomed her gratefully, clearing space on the cluttered table. You're a lifesaver, Mira. We completely forgot about lunch. Any breakthrough? Mirajan asked, arranging sandwiches and fruit on newly cleared space. Not yet, Levi admitted. But we've adjusted our approach. Looking at historical anomalies that might represent undocumented dimensional crossings. Mirajan placed a container of tea beside the food. That reminds me, Aster mentioned something that might help. An incident recorded in fairy tales founding documents about a spiral-marked stranger who appeared during a celestial convergence. Both researchers straightened immediately. What kind of incident? Lucy pressed eagerly. Details were sparse, Mirajan cautioned. Just a notation about someone with spiral facial markings who appeared during a meteor shower, spoke an unknown language. Then disappeared days later. Mavis Vermilion documented it herself but classified it as celestial curiosity, rather than significant history. That sounds relevant, Levi exclaimed. When was this? During fairy tales founding era, over 100 years ago. Mirajan poured tea as she continued. Master said the guild archives contain Mavis's original journal. But it's written in first magic script, ancient text that few can translate. Levi's eyes gleamed with academic challenge. I've studied first magic script. Not fluently, but enough to attempt translation with proper reference materials. Which conveniently exist in the guild's restricted archives, Mirajan added with a knowing smile. Master authorized temporary access given our current situation. Lucy practically bounced with renewed energy. This could be exactly what we need. If there's precedent for dimensional travelers with spiral markings, then Naruto's appearance might follow established patterns rather than representing a unique threat, Levi finished excitedly. That would significantly strengthen our position at tomorrow's hearing. Their enthusiasm momentarily overshadowed the remarkable coincidence of this information surfacing precisely when needed. Mirajan's expression revealed nothing beyond helpful interest, though her strategic intelligence had clearly recognized the potential importance of this historical connection. How's Naruto's training session with Wendy going? Lucy asked between grateful bites of sandwich. Productively, according to Urza, Mirajan replied. She reported impressive control demonstrations and valuable diagnostic data. They should return soon. She tilted her head curiously. You seem particularly invested in his situation, Lucy. The observation carried Mirajan's characteristic blend of innocent inquiry and perceptive assessment. Lucy focused on her sandwich to hide a slight blush. We connected during that incident at the Celestial Ruins. She explained carefully. Something about our magics working together felt significant. And he saved me when that chasm opened. Mirajan hummed noncommittally, though her eyes sparkled with interest. Magical compatibility can be quite meaningful, especially between complementary types. Levi smirked behind her teacup. Plus he's not exactly hard to look at. Those whisker markings are quite distinctive. That's not. I mean, Lucy flustered momentarily before recognizing her friend's gentle teasing. Very funny. I'm interested in the magical and historical significance of his situation. Quote. Of course, Mirajan agreed with exaggerated seriousness that fooled no one. Purely academic interest. Lucy directed the conversation back to safer territory. What's the council hearing likely to involve? Urza mentioned truth-compelling magic and memory extraction. Mirajan's expression sobered. The council has become increasingly invasive with magical assessments since Tenro Island. Dragon slayers in particular face enhanced scrutiny given their destructive potential. But they can't just force memory extraction without consent, Levi protested. That violates magical ethics statutes established after the Tower of Heaven investigations. Ethics and practice often diverge where the council is concerned, Mirajan replied grimly. Especially, a lie with Acnologia connections involved. We should prepare Naruto for worst-case scenarios while hoping for mere questioning. The sobering assessment dampened their earlier enthusiasm. Lucy stared thoughtfully at her half-eaten sandwich, concern growing for Naruto's position tomorrow. Despite his remarkable abilities, council procedures operated on legal technicalities rather than magical merit. What if we focused on establishing his control rather than his origins? She suggested suddenly. If we can prove he poses no threat despite his connection to Acnologia, his dimensional background becomes secondary. Levi considered this approach. That might work. Council precedent favors demonstrated control over theoretical risk. If multiple witnesses testify to his restraint under provocation. Exactly. Lucy's enthusiasm returned. Urza and Wendy's training observations, plus what we all witnessed during the Hunter confrontation, solid evidence of control under pressure. Mirajan nodded approval. A sound strategy. Focus on immediate safety concerns while continuing research into his origins is a separate matter. She glanced toward the window. Here they come now. Lucy followed her gaze to see Naruto, Wendy and Carla approaching along the canal path. Something had clearly changed in their dynamics since morning. Wendy walked comfortably beside Naruto rather than maintaining cautious distance, animatedly describing something while he listened with genuine interest. The sight warmed something in Lucy's chest. Wendy's initial fear had been entirely justified given her history with Acnologia. Yet here she was, apparently having found common ground with his adoptive son. The young dragon slayer's capacity for overcoming fear with compassion represented fairy tales. Essence better than most could articulate. As the group reached Lucy's apartment building, Naruto glanced up toward the window where she stood watching. Their eyes met briefly, and unspoken acknowledge meant passing between them before Lucy stepped back, suddenly self-conscious about being caught staring. I'll go let them in, she announced unnecessarily, hurrying toward the door to hide her flushed cheeks from Mirajan's knowing gaze. Downstairs, Lucy opened the building entrance just as Wendy was reaching for the bell. Perfect timing. We were just discussing council strategy while researching spiral connections. We have fascinating data, Wendy replied excitedly, holding up her diagnostic lacrima. Naruto's energy systems respond differently to various stimuli, and we documented Eyes control parameters during Urza's combat testing. Urza's combat testing sounds intense, Lucy commented with sympathy. Educational, Naruto corrected mildly. She provided valuable insight into council assessment techniques. Carla huffed, after attempting to provoke emotional instability through increasingly personal provocations. Though he handled it admirably, she added with reluctant approval. Lucy led them upstairs, explaining Mirajan's information about historical spiral-marked visitors during Fairy Tail's founding. Naruto listened with particular interest to this development, the spiral markings on his cheeks seeming to darken slightly at the mention of previous dimensional travelers. A century ago, he questioned, and they disappeared after several days. According to Mavis's journal, Lucy confirmed. Levy's going to attempt translating the original account from First Magic Script. That suggests dimensional crossings might be cyclical, Naruto observed thoughtfully. Possibly connected to celestial alignments, given the meteor shower connection. The insight demonstrated analytical depth beyond combat capabilities, a reminder that his intelligence matched his physical abilities. Lucy had noticed this pattern repeatedly during their travels, careful observation followed by insightful connections that others missed. When they entered her apartment, introductions and information sharing quickly organized into coordinated preparation for tomorrow's hearing. Levy and Lucy presented their research direction while Wendy demonstrated her diagnostic findings. Mirajan contributed council procedural knowledge while Naruto provided personal history details relevant to potential questioning. Throughout this collaboration, Lucy observed subtle dynamics emerging. Wendy had clearly transitioned from fear to professional respect regarding Naruto, occasionally referencing shared Dragon Slayer experiences. Mirajan's initial assessment of his control power had evolved into recognition of his strategic mind. Levy approached him with scholar's curiosity rather than personal caution. Most revealing was Carla's gradual shift from suspicious watchfulness to grudging acknowledgement of his integrity. The Exceed's protective instincts toward Wendy made her a particularly demanding judge of character. We should document everything systematically, Levy suggested as afternoon progressed toward evening. Organize evidence by category, control demonstrations, historical precedents, magical analysis, witness testimonies. Good thinking, Mirajan agreed. Council hearings favor structured presentations over emotional appeals. As they implemented this approach, a knock at Lucis' door announced Urza's arrival with additional guild members. Agil and Panther Lily entered carrying food provisions, while Natsu and Happy followed with documents from Makarov. The master sends these council procedural guidelines, Urza explained, adding materials to their research collection. He's negotiating hearing parameters with Counselor Lahar by communication lacrima, Lucy observed with growing warmth as her apartment transformed into Command C. Entral for Fairy Tail's defense of someone they'd known barely 24 hours. The guild's capacity for immediate, wholehearted support continued to impress her despite her own relatively recent membership. Gajeel positioned himself near Naruto as food was distributed, the Iron Dragon Slayer's crimson eyes assessing his draconic counterpart with professional interest. Heard you handled Urza's testing without breaking stride, he commented gruffly. Impressive, considering her idea of testing usually leaves craters. She was restrained, Naruto replied with diplomatic understatement. Gajeel's sharp-toothed grin suggested appreciation for the response. Council won't be. Their Dragon Slayer assessment team specializes in finding breaking points. You'll want to prepare for magical ND psychological pressure beyond normal limits. Experience, Naruto inquired. Unfortunately, Gajeel's expression darkened momentarily at some unpleasant memory. After Phantom Lord disbandment, they conducted evaluation before allowing my guild transfer. Wasn't pleasant. Any specific techniques I should anticipate? The direct question established professional respect between the Drago and Slayers, practical preparation rather than posturing. Gajeel responded in kind, describing council methods with technical precision while others listened attentively. They'll use Ethernano disruptors to destabilize your magical pathways, the Iron Dragon Slayer explained. Creates artificial fight or flight response in your Dragon Slayer instincts. Maintaining control through that requires anchoring to something beyond magic. What worked for you? Wendy asked quietly. Gajiel's eyes flicked briefly toward Levi before returning to neutral focus. Finding purpose beyond power. Reason for control beyond self-preservation. The simple advice carried surprising depth coming from the normally gruff Dragon Slayer. Naruto nodded understanding, recognition flickering in his expression. As evening deepened into night, the preparation team gradually dispersed until only Lucy and Naruto remained in her apartment. The organized chaos of documents, magical recordings, historical references, and strategy notes covered every available surface, testimony to fairy tales' comprehensive support. Lucy collapsed onto her couch, magical reading glasses set aside as she rubbed tired eyes. I can't believe how quickly everyone mobilized. You've made quite an impression in just one day. Naruto surveyed the evidence of collective effort with genuine appreciation. I've spent years avoiding connections, believing isolation protected others from dangers that follow me. His voice carried quiet revelation. I never considered that connections might provide strength rather than just vulnerability. The simple acknowledgement revealed more about his solitary existence than hours of formal explanation could have conveyed. Lucy turned toward him, struck by the contrast between his formidable abilities and this fundamental loneliness. That's what guilds are for, she offered gently. Shared strength beyond what any individual can maintain alone. Naruto's gaze met hers, the spiral markings on his cheeks catching lamplight. You brought me here, to people who defend a stranger because it's right rather than advantageous. Something shifted in his expression, a decision forming. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm grateful for that experience. The sincerity behind his words created momentary intensity between them, connection deeper than their brief acquaintance should allow. Lucy found herself wondering about the life he'd led before their paths crossed, the years of solitary wandering while carrying power that others feared or coveted. We'll get through tomorrow, she promised, conviction replacing fatigue. And then continue figuring out the spiral connections and your dimensional origins. Together, Naruto smiled, a genuine expression that softened his usually controlled features. Together, he agreed, the word clearly significant to someone accustomed to standing alone. As they prepared for sleep, organizing the apartment as best they could around research materials, Lucy found herself contemplating how quickly Naruto had integrated into their guild dynamic. From Wendy's professional collaboration to Urza's combat assessment to Gajiel's practical advice, he had established distinct connections with different guild members based on shared interests rather than general acceptance. Tomorrow would test those nascent bonds against council authority. Lucy settled into bed with determination replacing anxiety. Fairy Tail protected its own, and somehow, in just 24 hours, Naruto had become someone worth protecting. Across the apartment, Naruto sat in meditation on the couch that served as his temporary bed. Both energy systems circulated in perfect harmony as he processed the day's developments. The training with Wendy and Urza had provided valuable insights into his own capabilities. The research direction suggested possible answers about his dimensional origins. The collaborative council preparation demonstrated unfamiliar but welcome support. Yet beneath these positive developments, troubling elements remained. Dark Guild observers tracking his abilities with professional precision. The strange familiar yet unknown presence he'd sensed briefly on the distant ridge. The celestial connection to spiral patterns that seemed increasingly significant. Something was accelerating. Multiple threads converging toward unknown conclusion. To more, Ao's council hearing represented just one aspect of a larger pattern still forming. As Naruto entered deeper meditation, his awareness expanded beyond normal consciousness. In this enhanced state, he detected subtle dimensional fluctuations throughout Magnolia, infinitesimal tears in reality's fabric, unnoticeable to conventional senses. The recent celestial disturbance had weakened boundaries between worlds more significantly than initially apparent. The spiral markings on his cheeks pulsed faintly with golden energy as his natural energy system responded to these fluctuations. Whatever tomorrow brought, it represented just the beginning of revelations waiting beyond the thinning veil between dimensions. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.